Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 18th livestream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. Today, we're going to have a fun topic. We have Kage here in the studio with me. He's grabbing me a drink real quick while we finish setting up. Had to rearrange a couple of the things on the PC, so everything wasn't talking to itself, or talking to each other quite right. So we've got everything set up. I'm getting the last little bit here with the camera set up while he gets back. But yeah, today's going to have a fun discussion. We are going to be talking about the use of improv and how we as DMs and also players have the use of improv in our games in order to help flesh out our storytelling, flesh out the scenery and what's going on, as well as just give some details on what we can actually do, as players to also utilize that improv to help enrich our gaming sessions. So give us just a few seconds. We're going to go ahead and get everything set up here, and then we're going to jump right into our conversation. All right, so I'm going to have to switch over to our guest cam here. We're going to have to fix all this up. Thank you. All right. Hey, we got Kage in the studio.
What's happening, friends? It's good to be here.
All right, I think yours is pretty good. That's gonna be pretty good.
This is gonna be perfect for the behind the scenes section.
Right.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be big.
All of this gets edited out. I probably should redo the intro, but sometimes you need a funky intro every now and again. Who knows?
Oh, you're flying by the seat of our pants.
Okay, so that's all good. What I do want to do, since I'm gonna be talking to you, I do want to move the monitor over. So yeah, we are going to be looking at the next item in the series of items. So if you want to sit there and have any conversation with Cosmic ahead of time, I have not read it. I don't know what it is. Okay. He made a mention in the last week's stream about it being related to or an improved version of the Robe of Cumulative Knowledge, as far as I understand.
Interesting. That was one of the coolest mechanics that I saw in those earlier items. Okay. No, I am 100% here for that. Let's see. Let me take a look. So, if I remember correctly, there are 6 items in this series.
I believe it was planned for 6 for a full party of 6.
That's right. And these are all celestial status weapons, artifact type deal. End game
weapons.
And
for basically a end game plus.
Like, because this is them trying to take down the boss that basically took down a god.
Well, after freeing the god that he defeated, this is what they get.
And ultimately doing him a favor.
Okay, so that's a little bit better. I can see the screen a lot better. I'll be able to read off this and talk to you a little bit easier than turning my back to you to read it and then turn back over here.
That's fair.
I don't know. I always bring up D&D Beyond because it's a safe backdrop. I don't have to worry about too much, and it's I don't know if I wouldn't call it
material. If ever we're looking stuff up, always happens.
My only thing about it is I don't like how bright it is, how white their background is.
Everything has a dark mode now. Do they really not have like a
not like their website? I don't. Oh, actually, their website might have themes, threads, campaigns, characters, homebrews. I don't really want to go through my accountant profile on screen. Oh, actually, can I? Okay, I can move this over here. And let me see if I can do that, because that would be nice if the website itself had a theme or a way to darken it. Email preferences, my notifications, preferences. No, doesn't look like their website has any, like, website feature. I could probably get like an extension or something. I just, it doesn't really matter that much personally, but
yeah, we can figure it out. But we could always. I'm pretty sure. What is that? That was Docs. Google Docs. That has a dark mode.
Anyway, weird. That's funny. We're like on a delay now. No, that's because never mind. I'm looking at the wrong window. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna have that. I'm gonna bring this guy over here because this guy I will be reading up to this way. So let's see. So we got something from Cosmic. So what about the item that you sent me last week? So I think that's gonna be the item that we're gonna be going over today. That I have pulled up here. That's what we're gonna start with.
Modifier, huh?
And then thanks. You're gonna be interested in the AC modifier. And then it make you think twice on using mental stats as a dumb stat. So we're gonna find out.
Okay, I'm kind of here for it. I'm definitely here for it.
All right, so let's get into today's viewer-submitted homebrew review. All right, so this, once again, we are going to kind of cover, so this item is a divine rarity item. So what that essentially means is that this isn't an item everyone or anyone can get. Essentially, from what we've discussed in the previous streams, this is an item Cosmic has created to be a end game item. So once you've progressed throughout the game, you're basically trying to progress towards the BBEG to stop him. One of the things that you find out is what he's done is entrap essentially the creation goddess of everything. You work to defeat her you work to free her, and once you do, her last action before essentially dying, because even freeing her, she uses the last of her power. She grants the players, the 6 players, these items.
Something that caves in and they all fall. And
so she saves them. It'd be amazing if that whole area was like on top of like a black hole or something.
Bro.
So that's why. So even if she escaped, she wouldn't have enough power to escape it, but she did. Anyway, so she saves all the players, and as her last like dying ability, she transfers all her powers into these like items that they hold on to, like small little scales. And
scales.
This is where essentially his bigger endgame / endgame plus happens, because at some point you've either already defeated the BBEG, or now that's your next task. It's like the game plus mode. And then there's also now a tower that you can do based on the Chinese Zodiac, which I think that's more of the game plus mode. I think the idea is free the goddess, get these items, go after the BBEG, and then you can do the tower. As far as I understand it.
I remember something about the scales only turning into these items.
I was getting So okay. Once you get the scales from this, now you're going after the BBEG in the late game. So this is 18th level. So you already have to be 18th level. So if you get this item before 18th level,
right.
tough. So you have to at least get to 18th level. Once you're 18th level, and once you're in a serious combat to where you die, go below 0 health, and you're starting to do your death saving throws, if you have at least one failed, that's when the item will activate. So essentially, once you're level 18, once you have the item, I count that as your first death save. Mm-hmm. Is really the trigger. It's your first, your next, whatever you count it. Yeah. It's the next death save.
You're moving closer to death rather than life. It's like, all right.
Yeah. So your first fail. So your first, not your first death save. Your first failed dex save or death save. I keep saying dex, but that's the trigger. Is once you're 18th level and you've gotten this late game, if you fail a death saving throw, this triggers, and it will become one of these items based. I'm assuming based on the preconceptions of what role they play. Mm-hmm. Would make a lot of sense. I don't know. Cosmic hasn't made a distinction whether or not each one will be rolled when it happens. Actually, no, he does. I do know he does have it. It is random. So yes, it is based on let's see. So no, that's the effects. So I don't think he's told me whether or not each one will be assigned like pre-hand. Yeah. I think he's still toying with that because I know that he has some late game ideas still brewing.
Because I'm thinking, like, say if a wizard,
The shield.
The shield.
And I don't think he would do that. I think it's going to be more based on what role they play and what makes the most sense. But again, these are static items. These are the items they will turn into. So that doesn't necessarily mean
when this goes down.
What's that?
Like you auto attune to it. Like it automatically becomes connected with you and bonded with you.
That is
once
true.
it triggers, right?
Yes, and what's interesting is I'm curious if he'll consider making up to like 8, because let's say unless these are predetermined roles the players have to like get into, where he either prefabs the characters or tells them I need one of each of these things, I would encourage a couple more of these be made as backups, because if no one picks a paladin, that shield that can only attune to a paladin won't ever show up. Right. Or if it does show up, it won't matter.
Yeah.
So either it has to be established at the beginning of the campaign that these players have to fit certain roles, but the rest of the character can be what they want, or I would just suggest, if you're not going to force them into that, or pre-gen the characters, make a few more just to cover any that are specific. Cosmic says still homebrewing, so still homebrewing. I see what you did there.
Sometimes it'd be like that,
right? So the idea is that based on who you are, you would get, you'll get these things attuned to you at your first failed death save. And I think he even has something planned where when they all activate, they all have essentially an effect that happens right away to kind of help protect the player. I think it reses them. I don't remember if it gives them full health or
I thought
one.
It was like half hit points.
Yeah, but it does res. It does essentially immediately res them. It's kind of like a, hey, you're up, and now you have this new item, armor, weapon. Yeah. So that's the idea behind what these things are, if this is your first time hearing about them, or if you haven't caught up to the other reviews on his items yet. So there's a set of these that will give into the players and the players only, and each one will trigger at the next failed save on their death saves. And we've already gone through the shield, which was kind of cool.
Very cool.
Had a lot of interesting like level ups, like it had charges, had three, it had three pieces.
And we had some interesting, thoughts on like tactics and how to use them, and the rechargeability of it and whatnot, and how often you can get it back, and just strategy.
The spam ability, which I think, but again, he's also mentioned that keep in mind, Cosmic has mentioned these are meant to be spammed. They are late game helpful items, so once you get them, he wants the characters to full on abuse them as they should. The scale morphs into the item, heals the player for equivalent of 2 of their hit die. One each if they multi-cost. Oh, okay, cool. So there's the answer to that. So they will res. They'll come back from the death saving throws with 2 hit die worth of hit points back to the fight with this brand new item too. It does attune with the character automatically, but we haven't determined whether or not the character automatically knows
like what it does.
Yeah, we haven't determined whether or not they understand it or not.
Fair.
I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of understanding, but we don't know.
There might be some like instinctualness to it, like the first time you get the opportunity to do something, it's like, oh, you feel the urge to like do this cool thing that you've never done before.
Right. So let's see here. Can I do?
This one's got something to do with an AC modifier. I'm intrigued.
Let me do that. Oh wait, no. I usually do that for a reason, because I'm usually supposed to be over here. Because can I do? He says we'll see. Okay, so can I do bam, window capture? Can you give me? Haha! I can do that. Now what I'm curious about is, will it let me do this?
Noise.
Can I? Oh, nice! And you just see black around the edge, so that's perfect for me because I can now. Cool. I can now see it, and y'all can now see it. And now I can still see chat. And okay, perfect. I am good to go here. In fact, I will even. Sorry, trying to line it up with like where chat and the cameras are. Perfect. All right, so here we go. So the second of the multitude of items that that are the late game items. This one is the Divine Robe of Elemental Defense.
I like the name.
And again, the only clue that I've had up to this point is that it is akin to the upgraded version of the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, which we reviewed before. And it has more. So, of course, it is a robe. It is a rare... the rare type is divinity, or divine. So again, it's that late game can only be done by doing this one feat. Excuse me. So, wearing the robe, you have an AC of 13, or it grants an AC of 13, plus your wisdom, plus your intelligence, and your charisma, to a limit of +2 per each. I'm assuming that is again, he's stated before that these are rough drafts, so I'm assuming that is your AC of 13 plus your wisdom modifier, intelligence modifier, and charisma modifier up to 2. So 13 A's with up to +6. Capped at +2 wisdom, intelligence negatives due to a dump stat are factored in.
So you can get
if you
a max of 18 with this?
Max of +6. 19.
19.
And yeah. So what's interesting about this is what he's trying to, what he's alluding to here is about the whole dump stat, right? So when I think what he says when we'll see is the idea that some of these may be specific. Like if there's a paladin in the party, they are probably going to be the one to get the shield, unless Cosmic wants to run a game where he wants more internal diplomacy. So where someone who wouldn't normally carry a shield may get it, and to see if they'll try to sell it, if they'll give it to the party member. I don't know. So some people don't really like. Some DMs and some playing groups, I think, either just assume the party is just always good and always even. So it's like, oh yeah, of course, I got this item, you have it. Like it's the party's stuff, and everyone gets equal share, and everyone gets the acquired item. But then I've played in games where it's like no, I got that item. Like that was in the chest I opened. Like if you want it, I'll give it. I was thinking about selling it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it depends on how integrated you want to get it. But it would make sense that regardless of who gets the shield, the paladin would be the one to wield it long term, right? So, but this is interesting because, anyway, going back to what I was saying is some of these items now it's starting to see that may not be very specific, because with this one, like he's saying, if a character were using a specific build and they wanted to use a dump stat, like they didn't need any of these, right? So he is saying that whoever wears this, if they have negatives, if they've used a dump stat like charisma, if charisma was your dump stat and you put a 7 in there, and now you have a negative, that accounts for your AC.
So it will be a negative in that specific stat?
To your AC, yes.
So potentially if you have a +2 in wisdom and a -2 in charisma, then they cancel each other out and you get jack shit.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's what I like that he's alluding to, that is because that also separates the idea that all of these are going to be
purely
pre-decided. Yes, true. They not always exactly guaranteed, because we do know that he likes to play around with like the other one, the Cid, because of like the God of Trickery. So I like that idea, but it also tells me that some may be very pre-decided, but some of them are also just going to be roll of the draw, or like luck of the draw, and you're just going to have to deal with this because it also auto attunes. So if it auto attunes upon creation, I also don't know if that means it's like a cursed item. Like, can they take it off? Like, once it auto attunes, nobody else can use it, right, in the party. So the paladin may be forced to have the shield because that's going to be the only thing it can attune with. But any character who gets this, if you have a dump stat and this auto attunes to you, there goes your AC. So it's an interesting concept. I'm really curious how it would play out with the rest of them.
Interesting. I'm also curious, like, hypothetically, if, say, somebody who wore medium or heavy armor was in this situation and got this item for whatever reason, what would happen to the armor they're wearing? Would it just instantly replace their armor and it would disappear, disintegrate? Like, I mean, it's possible with divine magic, of course, but would would it just be there for them to use if they wanted to don it in that moment? But I mean, it's got to. It brings them back up.
I'm assuming that all of these items, if and when they can be used, will be like this would auto be on you. It would just auto attune and it would be on you. So you stand up with those 2 hit die of health, and you're wearing this robe.
Yeah, but say you were wearing like molten armor before that.
Right.
Like, where'd your molten armor go?
You're probably still wearing it. I don't see any reason why this would take away what you have. It's just a new item that you now have. So again, if you wanted to take it off, I'm sure you could, but none of the other party members could pick it up because it's already attuned to you. And that kind of sucks because once it's attuned to you, unless he has a way to unattune divine attunement, you're basically throwing away, even if you have a negative to your AC, because we haven't even gone into its special characteristics yet. This is just the base AC we're discussing. Yeah. But even if it was a negative to your AC, you're basically trying to throw away a divine magical item that probably has plenty of other benefits that who cares if you have a negative to your AC. And because I already kind of understand like where this is going, I don't see it as a bad thing, but it is a challenge. So someone throwing this on to someone like a wizard who threw nothing into charisma, like who literally has a junk, I could see that being a good balance technique. To balance out the AC because of the other things that this thing does.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's interesting, but I do like that approach. It's also really, I think it's creative too, just to have that balance of most likely you're gonna have up to a +6, but to be able to catch a character off guard is I think kind of a fun idea. So let's see. So it auto-attunes upon creation. So that's it. So the effects. So auto-attune and being equipped, the DM will roll 4 d10s. The elemental damage resistance can be rolled for among these types based on alphabetical order. Acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, psychic, poison, radiant, or thunder. Rolling singles like 2, 4, 6, 8 grants resistance to each of those elements for that day. Rolling doubles, like a 1, then 2 3s, and then a 7, will grant immunity rolled to the double number for that day. Rolling triples will grant reflection from that element back to the attacker for that day. Rolling quads will grant absorption to that element for the day. Lightning damage would, in this case with all 5s, it would be in lightning, it would heal the player instead of damage them. Like I said, the AC ain't really that much of a fucking problem when you have up to 4 resistances and possibly 2 resistances and an immunity or an immunity. Like, it's insane. But I do like this. So very much like the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, this is all designed to be a daily, ongoing resistance modifier.
So if I am here, and I'm looking at this right, rolling doubles. So if I roll 2 3s and 2 6s, I will get immunity to 2 elements.
Correct.
If I roll 2 3s, like in this example, a 1 and a 7, I have 2 resistances and 1 immunity.
Correct.
If...
So again, just like the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, he's doubled it. He's added 2, but I like that the triple and the quad make perfect sense. I do like the idea that if you roll all of the same 4 in a day, that particular thing heals you. Especially because how awesome would it be? Let's say you rolled all 3s, right?
These are fire mechanics.
Like check this out. You roll all 3s, right? And then you're badly wounded, and you literally just tell your buddy who's holding the torch, bro, throw that at me. Light me on fire. Someone douse me in oil. Like you could literally just walk into a bonfire in the middle of the enemy camp.
Someone's create bonfire at your feet.
Yeah,
fire
just
elemental.
Just
and you just run around getting healed every round as soon as this thing is
because he just specifies elements, so it doesn't specify spells, it doesn't specify attacks, it just says those elements. So technically, any of those elements should be able to heal you. Again, just like a normal fire. He doesn't specify it has to be a magical version of that element, right?
Very much so.
So,
but I feel like it would have to be damage of some sort. It would supposed to be incoming. Like I can't just sit on a block of ice and this is cold, so I'm gonna get
No,
healed.
true. It would have to be like Arctic level, it would be hurting you. So yeah, the ice absorption would only help if you were in like the tundra, and then you were like, oh well, I just put on, it's like, well, fine, I don't wear my protective gear, and as soon as you would start taking damage, you're just fine for that whole. But it's only for one day, so the use of that would be limited, but it is there.
So is this a situation where you have to re-roll every day? Like every day in the morning, it just rolls something new, and whatever it is.
Cosmic says that your example of the 3-3 and the 6-6 for the two doubles. He said he was literally typing that out as you spoke it. He was using the same example.
Oh, that's funny.
So I'm sorry, what you were saying?
What was I saying? I lost it, but that's okay.
Because it only lasts for a day, so.
But okay, that's what I was saying. Does it have to reset every day? So like in the morning, it re-rolls itself whether you like it or not.
It is just like the other one. Yeah, it will automatically each day 4d4s are rolled, and that is what you go off of based off of this d10 chart right here. I think this is solid. Like the only thing. So let's see. So preferably re-rolled each day, so the PC has to make use of it while they have good effects. So yeah. So and it's because it's random and because it's like I'm assuming at the dawn or after a long rest. I'm not sure how he pulls off a day cycle, but the idea is that once you're in that day cycle, you could be planning it. It's like depending on what you're planning up against. This is a great thing to have, but you can't quite plan for it until the day of.
Yeah.
I'm only a little bit disappointed that we didn't get as good of a descriptor on what it looks like compared to the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge. Because that was a bomb-ass description of the pages.
Add a lot to what the item is. And like I have like an idea of kind of what this looks like in my mind, but
because this one came from the goddess, what I would like this one to be is similar to the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge that is pages of tomes and scripts and scrolls that have the ink that changes color and moves. They kind of just flow and they're all just like tattered and slightly burnt at the edges. I say this one should look exactly like a robe made essentially out of the hide of the goddess, to where it's like loose fitting scales, and the scales have the names of all of the greatest wizards to have ever lived.
Oh shit.
Because she did that, right? She had all of the names of everyone who was ever created, and the dead ones fell off. So as her last thing, if you had this robe that was just like the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, and then the names would be how the edges of the scales would glow and sheen with whatever like the resistance was.
Oh, got you. So if it was like fire, it'd be like red.
But blending those two ideas, where one's a mortal-made item with magical like tomes and pages, where this one's the goddess's created item. So she would be able to like, why do you have all of this power? Because you're using the scales of every great wizard that was ever born, and she gave all of their scales to you to basically protect you. Like, that's where I would get, like that's what I'm imagining. Because of a divine level weapon or like a divine level robe, why wouldn't it just go that far?
For sure.
So let's see. So Cosmic says, I think the goddess's spirit would whisper that day's effects as they sleep after the effects are rolled, but before the PC wakes up. So the PC, unlike the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, the PC doesn't have to roll to find out what they're resistant to. So that's great. They just know every morning when they wake up what they're doing. That's great. I like that.
I kind of like that.
That also would help tie in my idea.
I do like that.
Of it being scales too, because like her echo, or even if you wanted to use the scales and say it's the wizards, like you'll just a different voice of a different ancient wizard will whisper to you what you've been gifted.
There was likely an ancient wizard that specialized in each one of these elemental types. You know,
like it's a cool like other than drafting up what it looks like, bro. I got nothing. This is solid.
So no, because I like how they have the different options and the different potential you have potential for healing yourself. You have the potential to return damage. You have the potential to be completely immune. You have the potential. Now, the only thing that I will say sometimes kind of feels bad is when you have this really, really cool item and just through sheer fucking dumb luck, you never get to actually experience the effects of it. And this is one of those items that I can see that happening. It's like every time you roll, fucking, yo, I got absorption of acid damage today, and then you never see acid damage all day.
But that's the whole kick of it, though. That's what makes it amazingly powerful, but not because
But
you know.
I definitely get the balance to it, but again, I'm talking about like as a player. Imagine going through session after session after session after session and never seeing it kick off. That shit would suck.
I mean, true.
And I totally get. See, that's the only thing for me is like say if.
But isn't that also?
If I had the possibility of like say you rolled over and over again and for so many days, like say you go 10 days without ever seeing any of that what do you call it? Seeing any of that type of damage come your way and you never get to actually experience any of the effects of it, you could get the opportunity or the chance to choose a day or say like, hey, I want to get this specific resistance because I think this would be useful, or like give an opportunity to re-roll one time if today you really want to try and get something different.
I see what you're saying, but the problem, the thing for me is that sounds like if that's happening, that's a DM problem. Like, you know that you've given, I mean, you got to think like this is like game stuff, right? So you've given your player this. And if you've gone, like, in my opinion, if I've gone more than 3 gaming sessions, especially if there's been combat, if there's more than 3 gaming sessions and these amazing, powerful items aren't being used, I'd be mad. You know what I mean? Because it's like one thing to say that, well, I've pre-written this campaign and these are the things and all of them are on here, but, the roles just aren't working. That's kind of sort of on par with what I would accept, right? If there's an honest reason why that is the purpose of the challenge, I get it. It is just like that. I mean, that's like saying that you should be able to allow them to choose their attack roll if they've gone so long with just having a shit, roll. Because I've done that. I've gone multiple gaming sessions and just not hit anything and been no help in in a combat.
You actually got to use your weapon. You got to swing it. You got to try.
I mean, true, but
there's no agency here, and that's always my biggest.
But this isn't meant for agency, though. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be that item. It is meant to be
that's fine, But that's something that I don't like as a player.
But that's what I'm saying is, as a player, to me, that's not a problem with the item. That's a problem with your DM. Because if you're again, unless there's a very stringent reason why it could like make exact sense why that would be happening,
like you said,
again, within a couple gaming sessions, it's like, DM, are you specifically not letting them in? Because I've also seen that where people will get this great item that the DM talked up, and it's like, oh my god, I could do this and that, and like it's like a blood weapon where every drop of blood you spill, it gets more powerful, blah blah blah, and then literally the next half. Like, the next 7 gaming sessions are against undead and skeletons. And you're like, you talked this up for half the gaming session. Like, for 9 gaming sessions, we went for this item. You talked it up, and literally you've given me no one to use it on. Like, I totally understand. In that case, that's a DM problem. Like, it's not a problem with, like, well, I should be able to charge this weapon up without killing someone. And it's, like, let's say that was it, right? You can't just cut yourself and charge it. It had to, like, actually take a life. That would be a problem where it's like, DM, what are you doing, right? And that's where I feel like your worry would fall in. I totally get your worry. But that's where the DM should be like, bro, just, they have this, set up a fight, and then you don't have to necessarily gear it towards, like, you don't have to, like, make them, ultimate powerful in that battle. But if you've already planned out and you know what spells the dude has, and the guy let's say he has, like, acid, cold, fire, and lightning spells, and you get necrotic, psychic, poison, and radiant from your, resistances. I would say DM, just change one of the dude's spells. Lean it towards the fact that he will now be able to use a spell on the party that guy will have the resistance or the immunity to.
I mean, if that's possible, that's great.
But again, but saying that, having a backup to like allow the item to do what it wasn't designed to, just to make sure it's useful, isn't the item's problem, right? Because again, in the end, that the DM is the one orchestrating all of it. So if the DM's not putting the opportunity there, it doesn't matter whether the item could have done it. The DM's not the one putting it there, and that's the agency that the DM's taking away. You know what I mean? Is if the situation isn't there to use the item, the character, like you said, doesn't have any agency at all. You're taking the agency away from even being able to be protected by it by not even putting the character in a situation that it could be useful.
I think I get what you're getting at.
Like again, like if you don't ever give them an enemy that can do elemental damage, why do you give them an elemental shield? If you don't ever put them up against somebody that can do that damage, that's what I feel why I say it's a DM problem. Because the DM's not giving the players something to use it against.
All right, I get that. I'm also just thinking like I can see the potential like for it being something that becomes a background item that's just you wear this cool thing, but it doesn't actually be something that's active anymore. And to me that feels bad. As a player, that's not something that I might end up just, like you said, not wearing it anymore. If it ended up being like that. It'd be like, all right, yeah, sure, I got this cool thing, never gotten hit with it, or maybe once in the past 20-30 sessions has this been useful.
And again, that to me is like that's inexcusable on the DM's part, in my opinion.
I mean,
because like think about it from the DM point of view. Think about it like because you were a DM, so think about it in the DM seat. How is that possible? How can you go so long with this level of an item for it to become a background item that people either forget they have or stop caring about? That is, you've literally gotten to them to this powerful point, and then you fail to follow through. To me, all of that is on the DM, because there's no way the game did that. The game, and again, the only minute way is that the DM literally has every fight geared to use this item, and it is just absolute pure dumb luck and rolling. And again, even then, I don't understand. I would not understand. And maybe it's like a module. Maybe because they can't modify. I don't know what I would accept as a reason for this happening, because of the again, this isn't an item you just bought at the store. Right. Or like as a player, I was like, I was hoping to use this item more, because I've done that. I bought a magical item hoping to run into the situation, and it never did. But this, if you're using this as a DM, how are you not throwing shit at these people?
I mean, I can see it happening. That's why I'm bringing it up, is because I can see it happening. I can 100% see that happening, especially with people who just either follow a module, or people who have very specific things in their world. I know in your world, at times, you're like, there are certain types of creatures that would be in this area, and there's certain types of creatures that would not be in this area.
Yeah.
And if this certain type of creature wouldn't be in this area, I'm sorry, it's not going to attack you. I don't care if you roll all fives and this is the only element that you have, and you have absorption for it, and it'd be really useful right now. They just wouldn't be here. And so, if that's the case, if this could be critical to like save the day, and I have no agency to do anything with it, I can't use it, it's just there, then it's just there. You know, like, I don't get to choose when the epic battle's gonna happen. I don't get to choose when the most advantageous time for me to use this, to be a hero, to be the guy that gets to be the guy. I just get to cross my fingers and hope I got the right thing today.
And
that kind of feels bad.
And I can't disagree with you. I just, all of that to me just falls on the DM's responsibility. Like, to me, that's just, if that's happening, the DM's not paying attention or doesn't want to put in the effort for that. Because like you're saying, all of that is true from the player's point of view. but it changes in the DM's point of view. And that's just why I'm being more critical, because you're absolutely right. From the player's point of view, that has and can and will happen. But the blame, my hesitation on changing the weapon's usage is because...
I mean, if I'm the DM, I feel like I'm creating the weapon. And that, as a DM, is how I would... Like, if you're asking me as a DM, like, I'm talking from the DM's perspective. Like, from me as a DM's perspective, like, that's how I would give agency back to my players. Give them the opportunity to feel like they have the agency with this item to go and accomplish something, to go and be active in doing something. Even though it's a defensive item, I still think it has the potential to be very active in the gameplay and the role play. Like, say if in an emergency situation you had the ability to give it charges. Like, so the last one was a shield, right? But it had charges, and you could activate those charges. You could do certain things with those charges. If this one, you had the ability to change one or all. Like, say you had 4 charges, and you could once a day, you could activate this for any number of charges. You could change. It costs a charge to change one of the dice to a specific one. You could change all of them to the same. You could change all of them to one. But once you activate it, it lasts for a minute, and then your robe is inactive for the rest of the day. And so you get agency at a cost to, like, do something cool. Like, and be able to be like, hey, this dragon, who just happens to be an acid dragon, is about to spit acid all over one of my companions. And I can, like, jump on top of them and, like, give myself immunity to acid damage real quick to protect myself and this person and save their life. And, like, I gotta be a hero in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't wake up that day with acid damage, even if we fought something with acid earlier, hey, the DM was being nice to me, he let me use it, oh, it was awesome, I healed myself some, it was great. But now, when I can save this person's life, I don't have it. And so, having the ability to feel like I can do something with this, even outside of just, like, being able to be smart about how you use it, because I definitely appreciate that, being able to be wise about how you do what you do. I'm sure there'd be some characters where it'd be completely plausible where they just carry around some elemental grenades or something like that, and then whatever element that they happen to have that day, they can do boom, just give themselves health bombs or something like that, so they don't have to worry about it being advantageous. They just decide when they want it to be advantageous, and that can work, but that's not always applicable. I don't know these people or these characters, the type of campaign they have, but just in my mind.
You bring up good points, though. I disagree with the need for player agency in the way that you're describing it, because it's armor, and I disagree that every item needs to have that level of player agency. Like, I believe that there is a place, things like holy symbols, or wards, or I believe that there's a place for things that are kind of meant to be background static, but again, I still say it's up to the DM to incorporate it in the story.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm pressing that so hard. But you bring up a lot of good points. And so I have a different way of working it for you. Because I do like the idea of being able to say 1 or 2 of these 4 could be player decided, the other 2 are random. And not told until the player chooses his or her. So the DM rolls silently, doesn't say anything. The player chooses silently. Or the player says, okay, I'm choosing acid and fire today. Acid and lightning. You have an immunity and another, right?
Right.
I could see that working. So that is actually not a bad one either. I don't necessarily mind 1 or 2 of them. I would say that either 2 and 2 at the start of the day, or 3 are rolled at the start of the day, and maybe 1 is held on reserve and player decided at any point. But how do you like this one? 2 or 3 dice rolled at the first start of the day. 1 or 2 are reserved until the first incoming damage. So let's say you've rolled 3. So let's say you've rolled 3 dice. You get acid and 2 cold for that day. Mm-hmm. You're not entirely happy with it. maybe you're not in an area where you, like you're saying, you're like, fuck, I'm bummed. We haven't run into anything, and like, we're not going to run anything with acid and cold out here, guys. And then you run into something like, it's fire damage, and then they blow fire, and you do that move. Because the first elemental damage you take of the day will be your next one. Now imagine if you do run into something that does cold damage, and you already have 2 in cold that day, and you roll, boom, there's your 3rd cold. So that not quite solves your concern with player agency.
I do like that a lot,
but
though.
I see what you're saying. I really liked this item. I think it's fine as a piece of armor. I thought it was fine as is, but with your, depending on who uses it, and depending on what kind of gaming group is using it, depending on what kind of DM is using it, the idea of adding some options, either starting the day out with the player being able to choose 1 or 2 of themselves, or letting the robe have one
Honestly,
that's not
those
run.
options are very cool. The second one is very dynamic, and the first
And that's
one
what I like about it.
gives it more strategic feel to it.
Because it's like you get the random ones, which I really do like, but having something that, because you are right. There are plenty of gaming types out there that would ruin this item, just gaming styles of DMs and players. But being able to say, hey, when it first gets hit, that will automatically happen, like that, instead of the player agency part where you're talking about being the hero, that almost is kind of like a really cool, like, let's say you're in a fight, someone, like, there's an assassin, and they try to, like, they roll, the DM rolls a dice, like, who's he going to attack? Oh, you. And he does a poison dart, and it hits your robe. Oh, well, yeah, or it doesn't, he's like, you have poison resistance, big deal. Like, that's because the robe just automatically recognizes you now need to be protected by poison right now. Because the robe knows that is, so the robe has, hey, I'm going to choose these elements at first, but then there's the, oh, no, you need this protection right here, right now, so now I'm granting it to you. And like you said, that feels more akin to what these items should be able to do. Maybe not player agency level, but I agree with you that the way these items are being presented, especially at those dire needs, having the option to have it be smarter even than the player, so it knows what it needs to be protected against, at least kind of, I think that would be really cool too.
Yeah.
Because then the player doesn't have to worry. Like you said, it's one thing to have all of these things randomly, but to be still worried about it would kind of be cool, because only adding 1 means that at bare minimum, the very first thing you get hit with, you're only going to gain resistance at bare minimum. So it's still not overpowered. Mm-hmm. But if you had rolled that same resistance 3 already, and then you got hit with it, well, now not only are you, busting it back, but now it's healing. Like, that could be a really cool cinematic moment, right? Where, like, you think it was just bouncing it back, and then you get hit, and then it just, like, glows and powers you up, and then you're like, oh, this battle's ours now. Like, you're right. That it really, I guess my argument is it doesn't need player agency. I don't think that's the argument I agree with, but it needs the ability to turn more dynamically. It needs to be able to turn a battle dynamically, not ahead of schedule, because there is a lot, especially at this late of game, you're going to be fighting like dragons. You're going to be fighting celestial beings. You're going to be fighting the BBEG. You are going to be fighting these grandiose things. And like the BBEG, he's going to have the BBG pre-planned, right? Totally pre-planned. The BBG is not going to have 10 spells, 1 of each type. So if this is also meant to roll up to the BBEG, if all of these items are designed to help tackle him, either having the player be able to choose it because they've learned about the BBEG and so they can choose one of the protections, or again, having it decide when it first gets attacked that's one of my resistances, makes it way more... Okay, that's the problem. As a magical, even a divine level magical item as is, I didn't have a problem with it. The reason why your argument makes so much sense is because when you put it towards the fact that it's meant to go after the BBEG, you're absolutely right. It loses all of its ability to...
He mentioned, he was like, these items are meant to be overpowered.
Yes.
They're meant to be spammed. They're meant to be, like, used in, like, incredible ways.
I was looking at it from the point of view of, as a magical item created by a god, it was perfect. Just a magical item created by a god for one of its followers, or just a quest item, was perfect.
And I agree
for the
with
purpose of going after the in-game BBEG, it needs to have something that is more dynamic, either a player chosen 1 or 2 at the beginning of the day, or not having all of them chosen and then having it like the first and second attack. So again, you can even just have 2 pre-rerolled and 2 of them are the next elemental attacks. So if you get hit with fire twice, it chooses fire twice. If you get hit by fire and then acid, it just adds fire and acid. But something, you're right. Because again, even if you're not giving in the player the choice, the player has to feel like the item is being useful. And you can, they either have to be part of that choice, like you were talking about, they have to have the ability to choose that's why it's useful, or they have to be put in a situation, not just luck, right? Not just, oh, yay, you were using lightning and I happen to get lightning today, but the player has to know the first thing you throw at us, I'm going to block it and I'm going to add it to my robe. Mm-hmm. And if you already know for a fact, and especially, oh my God, think about this. If it's on a wizard and the wizard can do, I forget what the feat is, but you can know what spell someone's about to cast.
Oh.
So if this wizard that's wearing it could use that feat to know what spell's being cast and has the ability to like hold reactions, like you're hanging out with your buddies, you could like be like, okay, guys, I have lightning, fire, and cold already today. Let's see what he throws at us. And you see him powering up. And you're like, it's lightning. I choose lightning. And then you're just like, we got like those are the moments that you need. Like you said, we need something more dynamic than just the pre-rolls because of what it's for. Because of its purpose, it isn't good enough. So no, you're absolutely right. It needs something in that direction.
But I love what he's created. I love these mechanics. I love being able to roll for the absorption. I love what it does. It is a especially because it has like even has force resistance, man. Like that is rare found.
So I looked it up. There are only, so this has 10, right?
Yes.
I think there are 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 13 damage types. The only things he doesn't represent are physical damage. Slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning are the only things this robe doesn't protect you against.
Yeah. Physical damage.
So, but that's where the AC comes through.
Yeah, exactly.
I would actually, you know what? I know it's divine. I know it's supposed to be overpowered. It should be weak against bludgeoning. And only bludgeoning. It actually should have a base 18 or base 13, its base thing, against bludgeoning. If it's bludgeoning damage, it should be a base 18 AC. Or maybe, well, something like that. And the reason why is because it makes sense why it has an elemental protection. It can't, it's elementally protected, which is great if you look at the list. But it's also just a robe. It makes sense for slashing and piercing because it's thick. It's probably made out of the scales. I can understand that. But bludgeoning, because it is a robe, technically...
I can see that.
No, granted, you could make the argument it's divine, so it could easily do that. But I would say that a good balancing option... I still think it needs the
if somebody comes at you with a hammer.
Yeah, I just think that it could use, like, maybe you don't get all of the bonuses, but regardless, you're right. For the in-game use, it still needs something other than just the pre-rolls because, yeah, it would just, like, again, oh, you know what? What if all the charges were based on incoming damage? So the first thing you get hit with, you get resistance.
Okay.
The next thing you get hit with, if it's different, you get resistance. But if it's the same, then it's immune. Then if you get hit again, it reflects. Then if you get hit again, it's healing you. So what if the robe is always dynamic? You don't roll it. What it does is it just takes the damage that comes in, and that's it. So if someone can literally throw more than 4 things at you, then you have nothing, right? So if they throw acid, resistance, throw cold, resistance, throw fire, resistance, throw force, resistance, throw lightning, normal. But if you're up against something that only attacks fire, I
really like that, especially because that's one of the biggest things that I was thinking about while we were talking about all this is like, okay, you're gonna be going up against the BBEG. This motherfucker's gonna be smart. you're gonna be able to use that robe maybe once or twice,
and he's gonna know it.
He's just not gonna do that shit against you anymore.
But if he doesn't know it, if he throws fire at you and he's like, oh, you resistance to fire? Fine, cold. Oh, your resistance to cold? Fine, lightning. What the? Bigger lightning. Oh god, that actually didn't work in. He's good.
That sounds badass.
Okay, that's it. No, that
and then you could even use some strategic shit. So say if you had any other magic casters in the group,
they could attack you.
Some people power you up. He's like,
oh, so
I want absorption.
So if you already have 3 and it got deflected at the enemy, or no, if like let's say the enemy hits you twice, right? And it's boom boom. Okay, now I have electricity. You're like, bro, it's your turn. Hit me. Why? It's like I don't want to hurt you. Like, no, I already have 2 charges. Hit me. Oh no, because it would deflect.
Yeah.
But then the fourth one, you could be like, bro, hit me. Why? I need healing. Just hit me with your lightning spell. You can't cover the distance to heal me, but you don't have any more healing spells, but you have that lightning spell. Throw it at me. I'll absorb it.
Cantrips, baby. You can smack him with a cantrip and heal him.
Bro, you totally could because dude, that's
Absorption's OP, bro. Absorption's OP.
Okay, Cosmic. That is our, I think, both of our official review of this is. As a magical item, like created by a god, 100% the way you wrote it, I wouldn't change a thing. If this was just a standard god level created item for a realm, as is, I'm fine with it. And again, like I said, so from a high point of view, that's like an 8 out of 10 by the way he wrote it. And again, without it being plot focused, if this was just an item that a god decided to create and throw out there and say, hey, go find this, and just, named it, I'm on board. 100% with the way it's written. Don't think it needs a change. With it from the prism that it's in his realm, needing to go to the BBEG, you're correct. Either the player needs to be able to select 1 or 2 of the resistances and the other 2 need to be rolled, or 1 or 2 of the resistances should be dynamic based on when it gets attacked. But my favorite example of it would 100% be the idea that you don't roll anything, and every day it resets, and each charge is based off of what elemental damage came in. So 100% and if here's one for you, Cosmic, because we talked about this last time, or the last time about the other item. What if it's not just the damage that comes in, the damage that comes in and hits? So it has to beat the AC of the robe. Then it activates. There's your full dynamic, especially with the BBEG. So if he throws something like an arrow at you, right, and it doesn't quite hit your AC, that doesn't mean you get the elemental from it. It has to hit.
Yes.
Then it gets the AC. So when it first hits you, you'll get maybe full damage or then the resistance.
I was thinking that was always the case. Was that not always the case?
I was thinking like incoming, but your AC doesn't, like, your AC fixes it, like.
So if it was like incoming lightning damage, but they rolled a 14 and I'm an 18. You were saying that would still absorb.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it has to actually do damage to you. Maybe it would have to actually.
Well, I think the damage. That the whole damage thing was our addition. They didn't have any sort of damage threshold. So like with you and me, like that's what my mindset is. Like it's not going to absorb into you unless it would have hurt you. So it's like incoming damage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we were clear on that. So I think that would be my more favorite version of this because that solves all the problems. That solves the problem that it will never, like you were worried about, it will never turn out to not ever work.
Yeah.
It will be more likely, very more likely, like Cosmic wants it to be OP, because if you're going to go into a battle and they only have a couple spells or a battle with a dragon and it has 1 breath weapon, it's going to get OP really fucking quickly. The only difference is you have to outlast the first 2 attacks. Because like I would say, I would give the first attack full damage, but now it's charged.
I see what you're saying. Yes.
That's what I was. That's the point I was trying to make.
Yes.
Is you get attacked, let's say by a breath weapon of fire, and it hits you. You're going to take that damage, but now the robe knows that damage. It goes, "Hey, bud, I got you next time." It has to take the damage. You have to take the damage to charge it.
So
then next time it's half.
BBEG
then next time it's none. Then it's reflected. Then it's healing. So in effect, with these 4 charges, you get 5 effects. You get the effect hits you, then it's halved, then it's negative, or then it's null, then it's reflected, then it's absorbed.
So that means the BBEG would have to double up on every spell. So the first one would hit you, and then the next time he tried that spell, you'd have resistance.
And then he had to do it a third time and realize it's not working.
Well,
Then continue, and then still try to double down if it's not working. Like, because again, but yeah. So that's okay. I think that's how I would do it. I would like that so much more because yes, it would make it way more powerful. Like Cosmic wants it to be in certain battles because it would it would charge really quickly, right? As long as you're high enough level to take those first couple hits. Mm-hmm. Now again, imagine this on a barbarian.
Bruh.
Bro, he could just take the fucking...
Stop.
We were talking about this being on a wizard, but now think of it on a barbarian. The barbarian, the tank, would want to take it would make the tank want to take more damage.
And
very specifically.
To be honest.
And think about it. At this point, everybody has...
would probably have shitty mental stats, so it would probably give them negatives in those fucking ACs, and they would probably be taking more damage anyways.
Especially if it's on a barbarian who literally dump-stabbed charisma and intelligence.
Who needs that?
Oh my god, like, dude, if you just had the dumbest but again, at this level, you're not worthy, because again, because when he goes raging, he's literally resistant to the physical forms. So he's resistant to the physical forms, he's now resistant to any elemental damage coming in. He may have less AC, but his raging would help offset that a little bit.
As a barbarian, you have unarmored defense, although it doesn't work while you're wearing
at this
armor.
level, most weapons, most enemies are going to have elemental attachments, elemental abilities. So literally, if you have a whole bunch of people with electrical weapons and they just come out at that barbarian and he's just like ding 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 ding, after a few rounds he's like absorb, that doesn't even hurt anymore. That hurts you. Oh, now I'm getting healed. Now I'm back to normal.
I'm reminded of that scene in Sword Art Online where there's like 5 guys like beating the crap out of this dude and his health bar is like recharging faster than they can even do damage to him. He's just looking at him like, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, no, I as an item by itself, I love it, but for the purposes of what Cosmic wants, that's it. I think that's the better balance than even letting them choose one or two. I think, yeah, get rid of all of the rolling. I think that was great for the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge, but this right here, kind of like how, like the shield thing works, right? Because, it's anything over the AC will kind of trigger it. That's kind of what I'm thinking for this, is like, what it basically has to be is that you get hit with something, you take the normal damage, but now the shield remembers. And if it changes, the shield remembers up to 4. Yeah. So the shield has memory up to 4 elemental types that you've been hit that day with. And it's great because you'll either just get a random set, and hey, guess what? That's just what happened to you that day, which can happen. There's your fuck all. You just had a couple fights and it was never the same elemental damage. There's your fuck all. Oh well. But then there are just going to be fights where that's all that happens. And then again, there are going to be fights where you have dumb enemies, where you get hit by 5 different enemies from the same type of attack, and they just didn't catch on, because, they shouldn't. Or
they just don't have anything else to use.
Well, because, you think about it, it's in the middle of a fight, just because this guy hits you once, this guy hits you once, this guy hits you once with the same elemental, this guy doesn't know what's happening. He sees you getting hit, and he saw the first one do damage to you. He doesn't know you're getting healed by the time he hits you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just because his buddy who got the reflect damage, he doesn't know that's going to happen to him. Maybe you just counterattack.
And it didn't happen to the buddy after him.
Exactly. So the idea that it will become overpowered is more than likely, but it also just gives the option of, if you do want to throw them a very smart enemy who's paying attention, that could be a really interesting one too. Like if an enemy has been tracking you guys, like again, if you want to do the storyline where an enemy has been tracking you, imagine an enemy who comes with you with a weapon that has like 2 modes. So he pulls out the one mode and intentionally attacks you with it, gets, some health down. Mm-hmm. Intentionally attacks you with it again to do the half damage. Intentionally attacks you again to get to your immunity. And he goes, that's cool. Changes it to a different, to a different ability, but then pulls out a weapon of let's say he has a weapon that can do ice and fire. So he hits you 3 times with ice, knowing it's only going to damage you twice. So he goes, that's fine, puts the ice away, pulls out fire, and then an electrical one, hits you with an electrical dagger.
Mm-hmm. Just to get it out the way, and then
here's my fire sword. So that could be a way the DM could fuck with it. Now, guess what? That would feel bad for the player in that one battle, because it makes sense storyline wise. Now, if that happened every time, then your DM's a dick. But the idea that you could also tie it into the story.
As a player, like, I would almost be excited, like, how does this person know this about? Like, it would be intriguing and something I'd want to, like...
Because imagine, just in the middle, you're bow, and then you get hit, and you're like, bow, and then you get cocky, right? He's like, you've hit me twice. And you're like, hit me again. And then, like, right before the enemy hits you, he smiles. And you're like, what? And then he just goes, he goes, pff. Like, he barely taps you. And then he just goes, huh, and drops his weapon. And you're like, what do you mean he drops his weapon? He goes, pulls out a different elemental weapon. And you're like, what do you mean he pulls out a different like, exactly. See, okay, yes, I want this now. This is what I want. I want this robe.
I want this robe.
I want the robe's elemental damage or elemental effects to be dictated by what damage was taken. That's my official ruling. That something similar may be coming to High Point in the future. That's dope enough. Right. It won't be something like this, but the idea of it, like, accumulation.
Yeah.
I actually think this would be really fucking dope for a weapon. As you're attacked by elemental attacks, your weapon gets charged.
I do like that. I actually was thinking about a similar mechanic in a class. Like, I was telling you I wanted that, like, mage samurai class where you're, like, basically being able to, like, fend off mages and you can absorb different elements like that type of shit.
We got to talk about your samurai class eventually.
I want to flesh that thing out so
we got to tell everybody about that. So we got a message from Kage. So using the milestone system for leveling, bosses that cause a level up, once defeated, all have proper names. The first letter of each name will spell out the BBEG's name. Because this is his plan for, like, the big identity reveal. He don't know if it'll be in order or mixed up to be a puzzle. I just sent the info for the item he's been struggling with. So he did say that he's been struggling with one of these items. I need to go back to that message. So let's see. So the next item he's been working on, he's been struggling with, he wants it to be the utility item for the set. So he did say that there's going to be defensive. So we've seen 2 defense items so far. We've seen 2 defensive. I think there's 2 offensive.
And then
there's a buff and then a utility.
Okay.
I think. Or are there 7 items? Was it 3 and 1? I know that there's one that's supposed to be the buff item, and then it was equal parts. It might have been 3 and 1. There might be 7 total. But anyway, so he's been struggling with it. He wanted it to be the utility item with 7 different effects. Only 4 of which he's come up with so far. The other 3 he's drawing a blank on.
Okay.
And he sent that info over to us if we want to take a look at that one.
Yeah.
And help him out. We can take a look at that one. Because the topic we were going to talk about today is more... I guess we were going to kind of discuss things on improv, but we can take a look at his item real quick and see if we can come up, or kind of just see where he's at and see what he's doing with. But yeah, so yeah, I think it could use a lot of work. It would have to definitely be changed a lot to come over to High Point, but
for sure,
I still think, again, as an item, just as a God created item by itself as written.
It is very cool.
8 out of 10, 100%.
I love what it does.
Because again, you brought up things that you can't argue with what you brought up. It's just, that's all I think contextual based on the playing group and the DM, and that's the problem is we have to remember that we're trying to review this based off of who's presenting it, so his realm and his group. So we have to look at it from that point of view. We have to look at it from the point of view of what would we do with it? Like for me, I'd try to figure out what I would do with it. Is it worth it? Not worth. I hate that word because it's like it's not like my items are better. But would it fit in High Point?
Contextually, yeah.
So it's like I have like, what do I think of it for you and what you've told me? How do I feel for it in High Point? And then how do I feel for it in terms of all of the other experiences I've had? How do I feel like the average like gaming group would use it, whether or not it's balanced enough to be like out in the wilds. So that's what I got to remind myself is like I have to try to approach it from 3 different viewpoints to really flesh it out. Because like just right out the gate, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this. But then once you fleshed it out, I'm like, I think that's a problem with the DM, and I'm not wrong with that. But you're right. It's like, but still, what the item's meant to do at that level of the game, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
So let's see. So he says that there are going to be 6 total: 2 offensive, 2 defensive. So we've done the 2 defensive so far. There'll be 2 offensive, 1 utility / support, and 1 relic wondrous / miscellaneous.
Okay.
So we haven't figured out what that one is.
Got it.
Okay, so his group. Okay, so. Oh, yeah, and then the milestone bosses are going to be like the BBEG's group. He just hasn't fleshed those guys out yet.
Yeah. People that are.
Okay, so let me pull this guy up. Let's see here. Alrighty then. Oh, that's gonna be a problem until I actually let it load, huh? That's the problem. There we go. Come on. There we go. All right, so let's run through this, and we'll see if we can come up with anything else for him. So this is going to be one of the same items. It's going to be on the offensive side. So obviously this one, same thing. It's a rarity of divine. This one is the Bejeweled Staff of the Dragon Goddess. Staff and spellcasting foci. It auto-attunes, as the rest of them do. And again, this one does not have an auto-attune specific. So far we've only had one class-specific item.
Okay. Wait.
Which was the shield, which required a paladin.
Okay, that's right.
Effect. This staff hold... Yeah, I'm correct on that, right? Yeah, it...
I think I remember that. I'm pretty sure we talked about that.
I'm... like, pretty sure. Can't remember all of this stuff. No, am I thinking of the previous item?
Oh, the non-divine weapons, the ones we went over before.
Yes, no, that was the Shield of Inversion. That wasn't the Shield of this. The Shield of Inversion was a paladin only item. I don't think you were here for that one.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Okay. My bad.
Okay.
So the original shield. So the shield. Yes. The dragon's wing shield. The tower shield was the first one that we discussed. That one is not required to be paladin, so that was misspoken. So that one can be used by anybody, but would have to be someone who probably would want a shield, or at least can wield one. And then we have a shield and we have a rope. Those are the two defensive items from these guys.
Okay.
So yeah, so there really isn't going to be any issue with classes or anything else like that. There shouldn't be any issue with who gets these as long as you can use it. All right, so the effect of this shield. Let's go. So this staff holds 15 charges, which can be used in two ways, permanent and temporary. Charges used in a permanent way are never regained, whereas charges used in the temporary are regained. I'm already liking that because I've always loved that concept of being able to push, but with great cost.
Yeah.
Which is why I've developed and allowed for like soul magic in my realm, because I love that idea that essentially with soul magic on the lowest levels you're essentially burning your max HP. You're literally burning your soul to do something great. So I love that concept already that we have a level there. Charges used in a permanent... Okay, so yeah. So here we go. So number one. So there are supposed to be 7 different ways to use this. Okay. Or 7 different charges, I'm assuming, right? Mm-hmm. And you can either use each one of these charges temporarily or permanently. Okay. So, charge number 1, item destruction. As an action, you can touch a creature's item, weapon, armor, shield, miscellaneous, etc. Within 5 feet of you, expend 1 permanent charge to destroy it, dealing a 3d10 force damage to both you and the item's owner. The damage increases by 2d10 per rarity level of the destroyed item. Divine rarity, non-magical items, and natural weapons such as fangs, claws, tails, and the like cannot be destroyed by this effect.
Interesting.
Wait a second.
You can't like destroy a tiger's claw with this effect, I think is what it's saying.
Touch a creeper's weapon. So you say damage increases by 2d10 per rarity. Then you go on to say divine rarity and natural weapons. So I understand natural weapons and divine rarity. I understand can't be destroyed. But non-magical items, so it can only destroy magical items. So if it's just a basic sword, basic armor, it won't do anything, but as long as it's magical. Because I'm assuming the idea is it's basically taking the magic that's stored in it and saying goodbye. And just blow, because it's basically doing force damage. I don't see that it pushes people back. I think if you're taking 3d10 force damage and 2d10 plus 2d10 every rarity level up, that should be pushing you back, several spaces every time, like increasing, right? Because I think that could also be cinematic. You're near, a cliff. That's going to be bad to do that at that point.
Right.
So I think it should push you back, not just take damage. But yeah, the non-magical cosmic, if you can clarify this on number 1. So common is 3d10, uncommon is 5d10, rare is 7d10, and so on. Yeah. I would also add that for every rarity, you also get pushed back like 1d10 spaces. So 1d10, 2d10, 3d10 for each one of those level ups. Because I think not only cinematically would that work, but with with that much damage, you better be. This is an explosion. I'm thinking like Marvel level, right? Like you touch it and you both just.
If it's that big, then it should be a legit AOE, not just the two of you. Like if anybody else is around, they get fucked up too.
I can understand that being protective of the divine. It's a divine weapon, so it's like a safety bubble. But the trade-off is that the damage has to go somewhere. The divine can only protect so many.
Rebounds on the two participants.
And I think the idea is that because it's a divine weapon, it's meant to protect everybody, but as the wielder, you're the one taking the sacrifice, right? Not only are you expending a permanent point on your staff, but this is your sacrifice. Like, you were sacrificing the damage.
Keep reading.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm just really curious what you mean by non-magical items. Like, so it has to, can you confirm whether or not it has to be magical? And then as a reaction to the item's explosion, you can use 1 to 5 temporary charges based on the rarity of the destroyed item to protect yourself from the damage of item destruction. If the destroyed item was sentient, additional psychic damage is done, 1d6 per rarity. I'd like to understand more about how that works in terms of so I'm assuming that you're using the rest of your temporary charges.
So basically what happens is, say I have all my charges. I'm going to expend a permanent charge, so I'm going to go down to 14 total charges.
And then you're going to expend 5.
5 more charges, depending upon the rarity level.
To just keep decreasing
if it's common,
it.
I just need 1 charge. If it's uncommon, I need 2 charges. And it goes all the way up to 5 charges to protect myself from whatever bullshit would have come my way. So I can just fuck you up and not me.
I would be okay with that. I still don't know if I would do total protection. Maybe up to 5 charges doing 1d10 protection each. Or up to either a d20 or every temporary charge is 20 hit points. I would do that. I would do instead of a full damage, I would still say that you have again, part of the idea would be because no one else gets damaged. You would still have to do that. And this is me talking more from high point of view of it's a divine weapon. You're doing the more righteous thing by taking the damage so no one else does. Yeah. I like the idea of it being able to provide its own protection. I don't know. Maybe it would be.
The only reason I'm okay with it right now is because of what we talked about earlier and how late game this is and how this is supposed to be pretty dope. And so honestly, if you use it on something tiny, you can eviscerate a goblin with this.
I got it. How about this? So I guess I could work on magic items, but there'd be no damage and there'd be no magic. So I'd almost be curious to know if so one permanent destroys the item. He's saying that he can work on non-magical, but there'd be no damage, no explosion because there's no magic to overload.
Yeah.
So I would almost say that this should also be for expending 3 to 5 temporaries, you can destroy a non-magical item. So 5 temporary hit point, 5 temporary charges will destroy any non-magical item, but 1 permanent one to destroy a magical item.
I'd say you just use 1 temporary for a non-magical. I mean, it's just a non-magical item.
My only thing is with 15 points. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be over. It's supposed to be OP, but I would think that in a day, being able to take down three non-magical items, because again, that means any non-magical item, so it could be any size. So I'm thinking like it could be the gate to a castle. Like if it's a non-magical gate, you can just walk up to the gate and go poof.
So it does specifically articulate weapon, armor, shield.
Oh yeah, it is a creature's item. Okay, that's fair. I don't know. I would still say that I believe that a temporary for non-magical items, I think it could be used for temporary, but again, you're destroying it. That's more OP than just gaining an advantage in combat. You know what I mean?
Listen,
because you're talking about also think out of combat. That is so much out of combat. You could literally go through like. Think about the biggest like dungeon you've ever made, and just every door, every trap is poof, it's gone. Poof, it's gone. I'm just saying, I would just limit. I would limit it to temporary charges.
On player items. That's why I like that limitation. I can't fuck with traps. I can't fuck with doors. I can't fuck with anything inanimate. I have to be engaged with an enemy, and this enemy I want to fuck you up specifically. So, say if I wanted to do it completely to one enemy, your armor, your weapon, your shield, and maybe it says miscellaneous. So like, say if you had an amulet now, I don't know why you'd need to destroy a non-magical amulet. So we're just gonna stick with weapon, armor, and shield, right? I want to make you as much of a disadvantage as possible. That's 3 right there for one person.
And that's why I think that would justify using all of your charges for that.
You see, I think I could be fair to take out 5 people. Like with this god level weapon, I feel like I could take out 5 complete people.
But remember, there are 7 abilities.
And that's fair. But
so
you're using all your charges. So no matter how many abilities there are.
That's what I'm saying, though, is because there's 7 different ways to use this, I think that if you were destroying even non-magical items, I still think that 1 item per temporary charge is just... That's absolutely insanely OP, no matter what situation you're in. I think at that point you have to hold back a little bit. I know, of course you're here for it, but I'm just saying is because again, it has way more repercussions. Like the idea that you were just obliterating non-magical items out of existence. Again, that out of combat, your example is fine in combat,
is a little bit different. It's not like it's obliterating it. I look at it, it's like it's shattering. It's like it's being destroyed. Like that's
still more. Again,
can't use it anymore. Yeah.
The implications out of combat are a little bit more than I'm comfortable with it being so loose with 15 abilities or just 15 things like that. I think that there needs to be, because again, it totally makes sense if you're using temporary ones, right? It totally makes sense if you're caught in a one-on-one and your buddies can't help you, and you can hit. You're like, dink, there goes your armor. Dink, there goes your sword. Dink, okay, look, bud, you have nothing. Do you really want to keep fucking with this? Like, I have magic, right? Like, it could easily, again, all your charges would level your battlefield out, but again, with 7 other abilities that we don't know yet, I'm hesitant to just say that you could just go around the battlefield, go ding, 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 just everyone's naked.
I mean, like, I feel like using up all your charges for just that, I feel like that, and then you can't use it until the next day.
But that's still every day, though. That
nothing for this. But let's keep going.
We'll keep. I mean, obviously we have different approaches to this, but like it's still a cool idea. So just the permanent to destroy a magical item, though, I'm still on board with. I do like the idea of using temporary charges to help mitigate damage. I almost would like to see it as a, like, I do like the idea of a scale. I don't want to it would get too complicated the way I'm thinking of it, like right out the gate. But it would almost be something like, for the rarity level, it's like if it's, so, using his rarity level, so for common, right? It would be like, in my opinion, 1 temporary point for half damage, and then 2 temporary points for, like, either all damage up to common, or even if it was like 1 point for D10. and you can choose which D10 you remove.
So
You roll
like up to 5, but the one before it will give you half damage, and then the one it would give you full.
Like that, and then the idea would be then. So again, so let's use that one for right now. So that's one option. Is like if it's common, 1 temp for half, 2 temps for negate. If it is an uncommon, 2 for half, 4 for negate, and then
so you're talking about double.
And then if it's a rarity, it's either 3 for half and 6 for, or it's 4 for half and 8 for negate. Because again, that I feel is more balanced in terms of taking down. Because again, if you're doing common abilities, 2 charges out of 15 is nothing to negate the damage. But once something is a rare item and you're exploding it, you better have half your staff's charges to protect you from that blast. I feel that's justifiable. Because like in your example, you have 15, you use 1 permanent to destroy this uber powerful, rare magical item that's going to do 7d10 damage. If you don't want to take that, I think it's worth 7 temp points. You'll get those 7 tomorrow. But if you've already used this a couple times and you only got 6, I'm sorry, you're going to take half damage. Because you can only... I think that's fair. I think that would be nice. But here's my other option.
So,
I have another idea.
Before I lose it, let's talk about that option. So we're saying, like, if I am using this on, like, the highest rarity, all right? So where it would normally, in here, it would take just 5 to make you take no damage.
Yeah.
You're saying it would take you 7?
It would take you 8 technically in that way because it would be common, so half and negate for common.
Half and negate for common.
And then for uncommon, it would be half and negate, so 4 total rolls, and then double that. So rare would be half and negate.
So 8.
So you would need 8 of your temporary points.
But that's only 3 levels. What about legendary or very rare?
Okay, so yeah, so maybe it's every 2. So then it would be common, uncommon. And then that would be 4 total.
And you could do 3 and then 6.
That's what I say, yeah. So 2 each time. So it just adds 2.
Adds 2 to the total.
Because yeah, so let's count that out, right? So it would be common, then rare, then so common, uncommon, rare. Then you have after rare you have legendaries.
You have very rare.
Very rare, and then
I think you have legendary.
So that would be 10. And then even if there was something beyond that, if you wanted to go like epic, or if you wanted to have something even before
artifact or something like that,
that would still be 12. So you'd still be able to do it.
Yeah,
and then you'd still be able to go one more level before divine. That would be 14. So literally at a full-fledged staff, you'd be able to go up to that.
I like that.
I would do that. It just adds. So it's kind of complicated, but the idea is for every rarity level, it adds 2 dice to the total roll. If and then that's the idea. You have to spend half to half, full for full.
Yeah.
So that's one option. Here's my other option. For every temp spent, regardless of number, but up to 14, right? That would be the max. You could do this. For every temp spent, you can remove 1d10 of your choice. So let's say it's a rare item, 7d10 were rolled. You can spend 7 and remove all the d10, or spend
just from yourself.
Yeah.
Not from the enemy.
Correct.
Okay.
Or spend 3 and be like, let's say I rolled 7d10 and 3 of them are 10s and the rest of them are 3s or less. Mm-hmm. I spend 3 temp points, remove the 10s.
Oh, so you get to choose which you want to remove.
That's the idea. So that's my 2 options. Is either the stacking number of charges required to do half or full, or any temp charge spent removes any die of your choice. Any one of the 10 d10s of your choice, up to the number rolled. So again, if his thing keeps going, so if it's 3 for common, 5 for uncommon, 7 for rare, it would be 9 for what rare, extra rare, very rare. It'd be 9 for very rare, 11 for legendary. So at that point, like I said, as it keeps going up higher, you have to keep spending more points to take it down. So I would be down for that. Is every point spent removes one of the chosen d10s.
I can see that too.
That might be more for like when you're playing physically because you could see all the d10 rolls.
Yeah.
But even again, what if you spend charges and you don't roll those d10s? That would make it also easier. So it's going to be, you roll you kill a rare item. It's 7 d10s. You spend 4 temporary points, and he only rolls 3. Here only rolls 3d10s because you've removed 4d10s.
Right.
I would be okay with that. I'm more okay with
Now-
that than just saying I'm just removing damage, period. But I like the idea that this staff can help protect you against itself. I don't mind that idea at all. So let's see. So Cosmic says it only regains 1d6 charges each dawn, so it doesn't go back to full.
Oh.
So even more so, I like this idea of having more things. Assuming charges were used in the temporary way, not the permanent way. Leave it to me and my ideas for items and effects to lead to a heated debate.
Hey, listen, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
D&D discussion.
So yeah, I like this. I think it's totally fine to have a permanent destroy a magical item. I think the protection it can give needs some work. I think you can justify removing all damage. I just think I would have it more dynamically. A little bit more costly, especially knowing that it takes a d6 charge. I might even give it. I mean, it makes sense for having a d6 because of how many charges it has, and because you can remove them. Mm-hmm. A d6 makes more sense. I almost want that to be higher though, because it's like a d12 almost makes more sense. But then when you have 8, you have way more of a chance. So it's almost like it has to like. The recharge would almost have to go along with the would have to diminish with the amount of charges, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah.
Even out. Yeah, thank you. But I don't really know how else to justify like the recharge. But yeah, again, you're not gonna. I mean, for the story purposes, you may not have battles every single day, so you may not even be bothered with this every single day. So
yes, you might get to recharge them, or you might just save your charge. Like I'm the type of dude when I hoard my resources because you never know what's gonna happen or when you're gonna need it. You know, so I like to use them as like a last resort. But again, you know, end game weapon. You're out here trying to go bust up the boss.
Yeah, and you're going balls to wall with everything. So yeah, I like it. I think things could just be a little bit more costly just because I would normally do that for balancing, but it is supposed to be pretty like OP. It's supposed to be just like thrown out there. I do think that there is something to be added here for non-magical weapons not needing a permanent slot, but being more costly in terms of temporary. Because again, I do think that if you're not killing magic, why would you even permanently use a slot? I still think it should be deserved to be in there in a temporary way, regardless of if you use 1-to-1 or if you have a range or if you just, do whatever. But I like it so far.
Very cool.
All right, so downcasting. When casting a spell of 2nd level or higher, you can expend 1 permanent charge plus 2 temporary charges to cast the spell using a lower spell slot, while keeping the original's damage or effect. This effect cannot be used spell slots on spell slots of 8th level or higher, so you can't downcast a 9th level spell. So you can downcast a fireball to 2nd level. Downcasting a fireball to 2nd level would consume 1 permanent charge plus 3 temporary charges, and the 2nd level spell slot while keeping damage as if it was cast at base level. Which I think it's a 5th level spell or a 3rd level spell?
So Fireball is a 3rd level spell that you get at 5th level.
Gotcha. So this would downcast. So you'd be able to use a 2nd level spell slot for it instead of your 3rd level spell slot.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it. What are your thoughts? I gotta ponder.
Again, when we're talking about using a permanent slot, I want it to be so worth it.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
So worth it. Destroying a magic item, that's worth it.
The temporary charges are based on the spell's OG level. So because Fireball is a level 3 spell, it's going to take 3 temporary points and 1 permanent to downcast it.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
so here's how I would.
I would say this is my initial thought is if you want to do something crazy, like try and downcast an 8th or 9th level spell, that's what's gonna
permanent
points. But I love the idea of downcasting, but costing a permanent point for every spell you want to downcast.
Yeah.
Like.
So here's how I would justify that is because this has a really cool idea. I want to come back to this one as one of the optional ones. So we'll come back to this one as an optional one, or as an additional type of thing. But this one specifically, downcasting. When we're talking about downcasting, I agree with you. Downcasting is nice, but in the example being given, that's more of a discussion of like action economy. And that is not worth wasting an entire charge permanently on a very small... Now, I say very small because we're talking about like a level 3/2/2 spell, which is the example given. No harm, no foul. But considering that these are 18th level, they are going to be throwing around 7th and 8th level spells. I get it.
I do.
But here's my deal to make this work. I would be willing to do this. Change it to where if you want to downcast a spell, I would almost have it to where anything, any 5th level or lower spell could be, say, downcast with temporary points, and then maybe everything above 5th level we're talking. But I'm thinking this for downcasting. I'm thinking if you're gonna go permanent, I say that split it up. So for the cost of the original spell, so 7th level spell, 7 temporary points, right? So for the cost of the original spell plus the difference in downcast. So you want to take a 7th level spell and drop it to a 6th, 5th, 4th level spell. So you need 10 temporary hit points, and you can drop that 7th level spell and cast it as a 3rd level. Here's the thing though. Maybe cap it at 3 levels. So any spell can be dropped up to 3 spell levels with temporary hit points. But any spell can be dropped and used as a level 1 spell slot by burning a permanent one. And temporary hit points equal to either the difference or the original spell. So like a 9th level spell, you burn a permanent one and 9 temporaries, and you can cast that 9th level spell as a level 1 spell slot. You can only do it once per day. Think about that. You can only do something like that once in a day, because your temporary are gone.
Yeah.
So to be able to cast any spell as a level 1, you need the permanent and the number of temporary equal to the original spell. I'd be okay with that for a downcast. And then anything else is the original spell's cost plus the difference. And if you feel like, again, because even as a level 9 spell, that would be 9 points. To cast it down to a level 1 spell, you can't, because you're already at 9. And it has 15. The max you could do is put a level 9 at a level 6. And if you don't like that, cap it at like 3 levels.
So, I have a couple of thoughts. So, I really like what you can do with this. I like your idea of spending a permanent to take anything instantly down to 1.
Or 1 or the next lowest spell slot. So if you have no level 1 spell slots, right, it would use your next available level 2. So, like you would have to have a spell slot, but the idea that you could take any spell that you know and cast it, that's the idea. Is it takes any spell you know and allows you to cast it in the moment.
Here's kind of what because I like this so much, and because this is meant to be OP. Think about a warlock, okay? In traditional 5th edition, warlocks have invocations that they just get. Yeah. And some of these invocations give you certain spells as cantrips. Mm-hmm. You can just use them at will. Now, I'm not saying doing that here, but I'm saying that because that's something that's already baked into here, when I'm getting a god level item, I don't think that's far reaching. And so if we're talking about spending permanent charges, I would love to see if I wanted to take Fireball and permanently move it down a slot. And be like, for me, this is it
permanently acts as
I can permanently access it as this. Like, I love that idea.
And see, that's okay, but that doesn't really tie it to the weapon, which is why I like the idea for. But for that's where, if you think about it, that would only cost for temporary points. It's a level 3, so it costs 3, going down to a level 2 or a level 1, right? So at most...
But you're not using temporary points to permanently move it down.
No, but essentially you could, every time you're going to use it, you could do that up to 3 times with a fully charged staff each day.
Oh, I get it.
And then...
So you use a permanent slot for Fireball. So now Fireball is, I use a second level slot for it. But every time I cast Fireball with a second level slot, I have to use the
3
difference charge. Or whatever. Or
I would use I would say the original. So you have to use 3 temporary because it was a level 3.
That's
so
cool.
if it's a level 7 spell that you've permanently knocked down to a level 6, you still have to use level 7 charges.
And that ties it to the weapon, and that allows you to expend resources.
So essentially what you're doing is you're not destroying the charge. What you're doing is instead of destroying a charge like in the destroy one, right? Like the charge itself is part of the detonation. This is almost saying I'm now reserving that slot permanently. I can never use that permanent now, because that is now my permanent spell slot. It will use 3 charges instead of my 3rd level spell slot and give me the ability to downcast it as a level 2.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's what's
because
up.
Then I can manage my my caster resources in a very dynamic way.
So
I love casting Fireball.
So here's the thing: is I don't dislike that idea. I don't think that works for this item in that context. This type of item, I think it works. The only reason is because, again, being really, really OP, that really would limit the player in terms of, like, yes, if you're a player that you know that's your go-to spell, that's great. But I do kind of like the idea of just always being able to downcast with the use of temporary.
I wouldn't say they're mutually exclusive. Like, I would think that you can do both. Like, in the sense that, okay, so yes, I can just straight up downcast with charges, right?
Right.
And just say, hey, today I want to cast this Fireball as this, or this other spell as this. But you would, again, just have those permanent charges on reserve.
Right, no, I get just the idea of permanently, like, the idea of permanently removing that just for one spell, like saying that is now my permanent spot for that one spell, I feel is more limiting to me, because again, I and that's just from my perspective. If I don't play very like strategically in terms of I have my one go-to thing, so that's probably just not something that comes to my mind. But also, I feel like, you know, again, I would have the dynamicism, and I feel like the uber chargeness of, because it's still only one level. You're still essentially one whole, you know, permanent spell, one whole charge just for a one spell slot shift.
No, like, again, hypothetically, the way I'm saying this would work, say I spend a charge. I want Fireball to be a level 1 spell. Now, you wouldn't be able to go below level 1. You're not doing cantrip stuff. But, like, if I wanted Fireball to be a level 1 spell, then I spend 2 permanent charges.
No, I got that. I got that it's stacking. So but that's my biggest thing is just, but it's permanent to Fireball. Whereas I feel like, again, it's every permanent charge you've spent is just for Fireball, and it's just moving 1. Whereas, again, I feel like for the uber weapon, especially because you have up to 15 of these, being able to take any spell in that moment of need.
Yes.
And then just literally use up any spell slot you have to cast any of those higher level spells. I think that is more of that clutch moment. Plus, the alternative that I was saying of still always being able to cast any spell at any shift just by paying the original spell cost and the difference. That, again, because we're talking about action economy.
I do like that. And I want to incorporate that as well. Like, that's...
I don't dislike your idea, but again, looking at it from 3 different ways, right? From High Point's point of view, any of these would work. It's just my preference, right? But from the idea of charging at the BBEG with these weapons, like, the downcasting is cool, but really, again, from the idea that this is supposed to go against the BBEG, it doesn't feel like it's enough. Like, a single shift in a downcast, because to me, personally, I'm not huge in spellcasting, or in spell slots. So first off, that's also probably something I should mention. I'm not huge on spell slots. It's not. I understand the concept of it, but it's not I'm not the biggest fan of usages of it.
It's not my favorite system.
But again, I do like the idea of, but it makes for great management. It's good for spell management, and that's why I feel like the idea of just being able to knock down a very specific spell one at a time, I just feel is for a type of gameplay that could work, but I don't feel it's for the gameplay that this was designed for.
And that may be true, but see, what I'm thinking, just from my envisioning of what this is like, this is going to be a very strategic, very hard-fought battle. Again, this person like came up against a god. This person's going to know a lot of stuff. He's going to be very well-versed in magic and a lot of other things. And I know that even as players, a lot of the times you can't help metagaming a little bit, but, you feel like, okay, you only have the ability to use this many times. A lot of the times when you're dealing with legendary monsters, they have stuff like legendary resistances. I'm counting how many legendary resistances. I'm purposely throwing stuff at you that's dangerous to force you to use your legendary resistance so you won't have it later, so I can use this ability and I can make sure it hits. Like, all these strategic things are happening. I'm thinking it's happening on both the player side and the DM side. And so if the DM or the BBEG is like slinging spells, and he sees, just like you were talking about earlier, the BBEG could know what type of spell I'm about to cast, so he knows I'm about to cast Fireball, and he's in his head, I know how powerful these guys are. I know he's not going to be able to cast Fireball over and over and over again. He's only got about a couple of these left, and when I think he's got his last one, he uses Counterspell on it, because he thinks he's got you. You don't got no more 3rd level spell slots. You're not going to be able to cast that on me anymore, and this is at a perfect time. And so now, guess what? You don't know that I've been using a completely different resource to use that. And I have way more in the tank than you think I can. I can throw 10 more fireballs at you and still be chill because I'm using these level 1 slots instead of the level 3 slots you thought I was using. And so there is and again, I don't know exactly how him and his people play, but for me, that's the type of strategy, like the type of, kind of like we were talking about the Baldur's Gate game that just came out, like you strategize like, oh, there's a group of enemies here, I can do this, oh, I know they're not gonna have it, and there's a lot of gameplay that you can play with that.
Which is funny though, because like in almost like in the opposite, when we were talking about the resistances on the shield, I feel like you're still pigeonholing it though, because again you're focusing all of that strategicness but on a spell that you may or may not know that you can use in the future, whereas being able to dynamically downcast at any time,
which is why
which would be more impactful.
Damn, I want to do both. I'm not saying you're talking about pigeonholing like that's the only thing.
No, but I'm talking about the permanent use. Like your permanent use is literally saying that I will only ever like be able to cast Fireball. I've used 3 of them, so now Fireball is a level 1 spell. You've permanently used up 3 just for ever being able to now cast more Fireball, which limits. Right. But again, that also limits what your character can do, because you are now fully like you are just basically I am the Fireball cannon, whereas. Again, in my opinion, that doesn't really suit for that higher level gaming, because now you're basically with that mindset, you're either getting a bunch of spells only knocked down once.
To do that or to do what you're talking about. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Giving the player the choice.
See, I don't think you'd be able to do both. I think that's the idea. The idea would be the permanent charge would be one or the other, right? Because it's a single. The idea is like it has one thing it does when you permanently use it, and then you have all of these like buffs for temporary use. So the idea is when you permanently use this, it has to have that one effect. And the choice between knocking something down permanently to make it easier for me to cast or hold on to it, versus being able to take the dynamic.
I wouldn't limit it to one thing per permanent charge. Like,
I mean, that's how it's being written so far. So far, it's once the permanent charge is used, it has one purpose. That's what each of these are.
I mean, we've only read 2 so far, but I mean, for sure.
But that's the idea. That's why it has 7. You only have 7 things. That would be a whole different thing to do. You'd have to add a whole, like that would be number 5. Number 5 would be being able to permanently downcast a spell, and then number 2 would be being able to downcast any spell. Like those would be 2 different permanent uses. They wouldn't be able to be combined in a single like charge.
Like I said, I wouldn't limit it that way. I would write this however I want, and that's how I would write it.
I mean, that would make sense, but that's still 2 different options though. So again, if it only has 7 items, that would be like 2 of the 7 items.
The first item, there are multiple things you can do with it, and that's the mindset.
But it destroys a magical item. The only option is the type. He specifies the type, but it still destroys magical item. That's all it does.
Like I said, I would just write it differently.
So downcasting is an interesting idea. I just think that it could use a little bit more power. Like, I think that it could be more powerful for being that high, because one spell slot to me is just not enough.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do enough to be powerful to downcast by just one. Especially for a permanent use. Like, with having to permanently use it, I do like the temporary usage to count, to like use that as also currency in the moment. But a permanent use needs to be like worth it. And especially the way this one is written, just a one-time, one level, one spell slot drop. I feel like what you were saying before, with a lot of players, you're going to hold on to this till you feel like you need it. Mm-hmm. This feels like it's going to be one of those times I was like, that's not, maybe next time. Like, I got a couple extra spells, guys, maybe next time. You know what I mean? It's like you have to not only know it's time to use this, but then you had to plan what spell you weren't going to cast at that level to then know when to use. You know what I mean? Like, There's a lot more that has to go into planning this one, and I don't feel it makes the players have the the control of the situation. It feels too premeditated. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel, I don't want to say dynamic, but it just doesn't feel like the players can be responsive. If it's only one, I feel like it could be stronger.
Okay.
I do like the idea of being able to go more than a level, like at a higher cost. But interesting. Okay, so number 3, we have charge restoration. That's interesting. So when a friendly creature you can see is doing an activity to recharge one of their items as a ritual or other method, you can spend 2 permanent charges plus temporary charges based on the friendly's creator's item's rarity. So 2 for common, 3 for uncommon, 4 for rare, to regain 1 charge on the ally's item. This effect cannot be used on itself. Okay, no. I'm already not liking this one because there are plenty of low-level options to help recharge items, like especially if you have an artificer in the group, because an artificer has, like, one of their basic feats is being able to recharge. 2 permanent charges to give someone a... Okay, wait a second. Hold on. Am I reading this wrong? Is this a permanent... Hold on.
I think you're reading it right.
2 permanent charges to give a friendly... And again, because at first I was like, did I read this wrong? Is this a friendly, like, one in the group? Like, you could recharge one in the group. But so far, the only one we've seen is the shield, and that recharges itself. So I was thinking, like, is it part of the set? Do you recharge? But we haven't seen one that...
So
but,
I think this might be talking about any other magical item that has
means
charges.
No, it is. So, like, the only thing I can think of that would be worth 2 permanent charges, the only time that could be possibly worth it are if you come across an item that A, that does not normally recharge, and B, is near better than than any of these. Because think about it. The only things I would ever use 2 permanent slots on is like a Ring of Wishes that only has 1 wish on it, because those usually come stocked with 3. So if I get a Ring of Wishes that has 1 of 3 wishes on it, I'll spend 2 permanent points to choose that. But, like, just immediately coming to mind, there isn't a single non-divine weapon that has a charge that I would want to spend 2 of these to recharge it. You know what I mean? Like, that's, like, I mean, maybe if it is the BBEG battle and there's the other attacking weapon has a huge, like, attack option and you want to, like, bust it real quick. So it's meant to recharge other items if you're in a time crunch and you can't wait for the next day to have it recharged itself or over the night. Yeah,
I still wouldn't use.
That's not too. No. There, I would talk our way out of it because again, already the downcasting, the item destruction. Like I'd rather destroy 2 items, 2 magical items, than give someone a charge back.
Yeah.
Like I would go into that battle going, for the price of recharging your 1 item, I will just make 2 attempts to destroy the BBEG's like armor or his weapon or his like, It's such a... I don't know of an example outside of like a Ring of Wishes that would be powerful enough to earn 2 permanent shots.
I really feel like a permanent slot should cause a permanent change. Like I really feel like, especially with a divine weapon, like when you're destroying a magic item, that shit's not coming back.
Exactly.
That's gone. That is a permanent.
That's what I'm saying.
change,
Like something that
I think it fits very well.
which is why I'm saying like if destroying a permanent thing could like just use a permanent slot to replace one permanent charge on an item that wouldn't normally recharge.
Yeah, but again,
that I get.
That's like very rare.
Oh, but again,
across that.
Well, at this level, you would think that they might have, but you're right. Like it's for that. What I would say, almost what I would do at that point is be like, okay, if you want to just recharge normal magical items that aren't like super like uber charged, what I would do is say, you can spend temporary points equal to the item, like 2 for each of the items rarity, so 2 points per item rarity, and half the wielder's level of temporary will like recharge their weapon to full. Like that would be, because then that's a lot of times that'd be half your staff's charges, depending upon the item and the character, because that could work for in game and out of game. Like that would work for really low character, like low level people out of game. Go to a town, just recharge a bunch of shit. But a permanent one, I would want to see the permanent one either like recharge an item that can't be recharged, or if it's an item that just has charges that it would normally recharge on its own, it gives a boost. Like some sort of like an charge, like overclocks it.
I would say either give it an additional potential charge, like if it only has 4 charges.
Oh, now it has 5
charges.
Oh yeah, you gave it one free one
like
right now, but now it's a permanent free one. Okay.
Like an artificer, you get to create a magical item. What I mean is like there's a mundane sword, you can turn it into a +1 sword for a permanent charge. Or you have a regular bag, you can turn it into like a bag of holding, or like a common magical bag of some sort. Like something that for a permanent charge.
Okay.
I would fuck with that.
Okay, I got it. So normal like magical items, I would still do the temporary points to recharge something that would normally recharge itself. So if it has, like in his case, we just can't wait till the next dawn. Okay, I got some temporary points. What's your level? 18. So what's a quarter of that? Well, let's say a quarter of your level, because you want to keep it down, right? So quarter of your level, we're talking about like 5 or 4 or 5, and or no,
I'd do it
like
based
3 or
upon
4.
the rarity of the item.
Or yeah, rarity idea. So basically, like temporary hit points to recharge normal items, like an artificer. Basically, temporary points to act like an artificer would, but spend a rare point. And I like the idea of being able to like grant it a new permanent one, like in line with it. Oh God, I just lost the idea. But what about you spend it, because you were talking about like creating a magical item.
Yeah, because like artificers have the ability to like replicate magic item, and there's like a list of items that they can replicate, like something like that. If you have the mundane version, whatever that is. Go ahead.
Right, sorry. Now I got the idea. You spend a permanent one, so a permanent one could add the charge. But what if this is you temporary to recharge it? But what if a permanent one could transfer? So let's say you have one item and it has charges, and you like those charges, but you can't wield the item or you don't like the item. You spend a permanent one, and you can take the charges or the effects of this and put it into a different item.
Interesting.
And it'd be like it would be recharged at that point. But like, let's say you had a wand of fireball, and now you give your barbarian an axe of fireball. Works just like the wand does. Has 3 charges per day and can cast fireball, but it's a fucking axe that he can hurl fire. Like, that idea would be fucking dope. Is take any item that has a charge. Not only would you recharge it, but you can transfer those charges into any other item.
Now,
that would be kind of dope.
Could that get dangerous if you take an item that's normally big and large and you turn it into like a ring or a necklace that's very inconspicuous that nobody might see?
Well, again, you're not changing the item, you're just checking what the item can do. So again, like if you have a wand of fireball and it has like 3 charges per day, or just 3 charges in it, right? All you're doing is taking the charges and say putting it in a different item. So that item now has those charges.
Say put those same charges in a ring.
Yeah, then now you have a ring of fireball.
Now I'm not holding a wand, because when you hold a wand, just like when you brandish a sword, you look aggressive.
No, I got you, but yeah, no. The concept is as long as it's feasible to go into the item, then yeah, as long as it would transfer, I would say that would be dope.
I would just have a ring. I would just like bling myself out. I'd be like, yo, this is coming over here. This is coming over here. And now I got like 10 rings of fucking random shit.
Yeah, I like the idea of recharging it, but I think that permanent shouldn't recharge lesser items. Like if it's just a normal item that just would normally recharge on its own, basically temporary makes sense because what you're doing is you're just trying to bypass the time frame, right? You're just trying to in-game bypass waiting the next day because the storyline doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So temporary, you're going to get it back anyway. Just that's why I justify using temporary, because you would get it back normally.
Yeah.
The permanent one should either give back what it can't normally get back, because that's why it's super uber powerful, add to what it does, like give it an extra charge or something, or again, I do kind of like the idea of charge restoration or being able to move a charge. Like that just sounds so fucking cool to just be like, you find it, because imagine just adventuring at that high level, you're finding such awesome weapons with cool stats, but you're like, I really want this, but I don't like that, and you're just like, poof, there you go, you have it. Like it's better for the party to have that, even though no one wants to have that.
Yeah.
That's where my mind's at. Is that level?
I really do like that ability.
You know, I would even say this, Cosmic. I would even submit that as one of my suggestions for a different one. Charge restoration should be by itself. Anything mundane or lower should be charged by temporary. If you use a permanent charge, you should basically be adding a charge to it. I just like that. Like you'll fully charge it and add a charge, but then you can use temporary ones to just recharge normal items. I think that's a good balance. But being able to boost it.
Permanent would do what?
Permanent would add a charge. So however many charges you add, permanent not only refills you, but adds a charge. So if you have anything of 3, now you have an everything of 4 and it's max. Yeah. And this would include items that normally can't be recharged, like a Ring of Wishes or whatever, because it's divine.
Cool.
I would say let's add...
Well, maybe you can't add to stuff that normally doesn't get recharged.
Oh, yeah, good point. If it doesn't normally get recharged, you can either charge that to full, or if it normally gets recharged, you can add a charge and refill it. That's cool. But I would say, Cosmic, as an option, add one that lets you, like, shift things. Like, because it could work like this. So imagine you can shift any magical effect from any item to other item, or between 2 items, right? So if 2 items are already magical, they swap, or magical effect into a non-magical item. And the idea is this bypasses, because it's divine, it bypasses the need for price. So you have a wooden dagger plus 5. Because normally, in D&D it says you have to have a gem or a sword that's X value. So because it's divine, it bypasses the value requirement. So like you were talking about, you could literally be carrying around like a boken, but it's like a fucking wooden sword, but it's like hella beefy. So have the thing where it's like the permanent charge can, like temporary would maybe temporarily do it. Like you can, for one day, you can transfer that magical item for temporary points. A permanent charge would permanently transfer them. If they're both magical, they swap. Maybe if you burn 2, you add. Burn 2 permanent points, you can add it.
That would be my question. If you start doing shit like that, would be some.
And then the idea would be it bypasses the value requirements, and it bypasses, like if it's on a weapon, it bypasses the need to go to like another weapon. So what you're doing is essentially burning these, but being able to craft your own things. So here's my idea, especially for like, let's say you have some badass armor and you through whatever means can't find an enchanter to do anything to it. You're like, I really want XYZ on this. Burn a permanent slot, find the spell of resistance, like find a spell of resistance that you want on your armor, and I could burn a slot off this and go dink, dink, now your armor has that magical effect. So that's my idea, is take spells, and you could put that spell and essentially cast that into an item, and that item now has that ability. Like, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, another ability of this thing is being a... But again, that might be better reserved. Well, he did say this is the utility one. This isn't the weapon. This is the utility one. So it's supposed to be the buffer. This is supposed to be the agency buff, right?
He did say utility when he was earlier talking about it.
Yeah, I do believe this is the utility one. So this is supposed to buff everybody. So yeah, I would say that...
If we just look at the way it's working, I mean, we got a downcasting one, we got a restoration, we got a healing one, we got a... we got one that does damage, but primarily it destroys.
You know what we didn't talk about? Holy shit. Downcasting shouldn't just be on the wielder. We were looking at this from a magic user using this item to downcast their own magic. So we were talking about like using the permanent one to downcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you could permanently do that to like permanently let someone else downcast? Like use a permanent one and someone else can downcast. Like I wonder if should it be focused?
When you actually did cast that spell, you would have to expend charges so that it's tied to the weapon.
Oh yeah,
Would
that's
they still
right.
have to do
Yeah,
that?
I don't know. Just trying to think
I
of
did
like
that idea though. Is
like can you help somebody else out downcast? I don't know if that would be worth it though. But yeah, I like the idea of being able to swap or give, like, just take a magical effect and give it somewhere else. Can you imagine doing that in battle? You see an enemy with a bossed out weapon and you're just like, fuck it, that's ours now. It's now on our scheme. Like,
you see, okay, what about for what you're talking about? How would you play that with stuff like sentient weapons?
It wouldn't work on the sentient part. It would just work on the essentially elemental effects.
So you could remove the magicalness of a sentient weapon with the exception of its sentience. So if you had this sentient weapon that had powers, you would take away its powers, but it would just remain sentient.
I think it would be more based on. I was thinking more based on like how the charges work. So, like a scroll is kind of like a charge because you can cast off the scroll. So that's like what you're moving is you're moving that charge. And you're not like saying, hey, this is a scroll of fireball. Now your armor has protection from fire. It's just that your armor has fireball with one charge. Mm-hmm. And you'd be able to cast fireball with that one charge from the armor. Mm-hmm. That's how I was thinking of it. So like if you have a sentient sword that is magical, I don't think you would be able to do anything to it. But if either that sword has a charge, or let's say it does lightning damage, like it was imbued with lightning damage, maybe you can take the lightning damage imbuement away from it, but it's still a sentient sword. Yeah.
Like, if another weapon has a resistance of some sort, like so you have armor that has resistance, could I put that resistance on a weapon? As long as I'm wielding that weapon, I have resistance. Like would stuff like that work? Could I?
I think, again, for high point, it would all be semantical. Like, if it's armor that has the resistance, since it doesn't grant you resistance, but it's the armor, the weapon would then have resistance, which means if you have to...
grant no benefit to the user.
What about going up against a dragon and you want to not make your weapons melt? So you could put fire resistance on a weapon to not make it melt. I mean, I would say that, yeah, there'd be a lot of ways to play with it, but I just like the idea of being able to permanently move a magical effect between items permanently with one of these. I think that would be a cool effect for this thing. So that's one option for you, Cosmic, if you're looking for one. I love the charge restoration. I think 2 permanent charges for a mundane recharge is too much.
I like the adjustment we were talking about, like a permanent charge to add one and refill it, and
or refill a non-refillable. That would be a permanent.
Or refill a non-refillable, yeah.
Because that right there, that is so. I mean, again, most DMs I've ever played with, usually if they give out something like a Ring of Wishes, it's already been used, right? Like I very rarely get a full stocked one.
I have to ask the question: how would you as a DM play I wish for all my permanent charges back?
Wouldn't work because, well, depends. Who made the Ring of Wishes? Basically, a normal standard Ring of Wishes would not, because we're talking about divine power. This was charged by a divine creature. These are permanent, period. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, these never come back because the person who made them ain't coming back either.
Yeah. Where its power came from.
But if you were able to get a divine level Ring of Wishes, then yeah. It all depends on who made it. But otherwise, that's why I think this thing would be I think it would fit better with the idea that temporary could give what's already going to come back, because that makes most sense. It makes it very OP, makes it fit exactly what Cosmic wants, which is we don't have time to wait. Fine. I will forego being able to downcast a spell for this, because you're still busting the temporary. It's still action economy. We can't wait 12 hours for the sun to come up for you to get your spell back or for you to get this charge back on your weapon. Is it worth me being able to do all of this stuff, or is it worth you having that in this next battle? That is for sure. That is on the players, that is on the team, that is tactical, and that can change at any given moment. And it makes the person wielding the staff more likely to understand throughout that day how they're using it, because they have to know all of these things that they can do. So I love the idea of charge restoration. I just think it needs a revamp, because yeah, as written, I just don't think it would ever be. I don't think I would use it as written, like you said. I wouldn't ever use it like this. Let's go revitalized healing. When you or a creature you can see casts a healing spell, you can expend a permanent charge equal to half the spell's. You can expend permanent charges equal to half the spell's level. Don't like that already. Rounded up to double the spell's dice. Don't like it. Example: 5th level mass cure wounds heals up to 6 creatures in a 30-foot sphere for 3d8 plus the spell's casting mod. The effects double to 6d8 plus the spell casting ability mod at the cost of 3 permanent charges. Not for a one-time use. I'd never use that. I would never use that. I was very excited to hear this until that part. Automatically, what I would do, 1 permanent usage. So I would say any creature you can see, or when you or any creature you can see casts any healing spell, 1 permanent slot should automatically apply that spell to everyone in your party, or like double it and it affects everyone. So even someone popping a heal potion, you could spend a permanent one, double the effects, and every ally gets it that you can see. I would be down for that, because then the idea would be like, I would do, because right now he's trying to double it. I would say that if you're just trying to bump it, I would say for every 2 temporary points, you double the effect of the, or you add a d6 to the healing effect, right? Like for every charge you spend, every temporary charge, you add to the healing effect. I would say a permanent one would immediately double the effect and apply it to every ally within sight. That would be a game changer and an OP move. Because if temporary hit points, if you and a healer are just bombing up and you're just sitting there going, who are you going to heal next? Boom, temporary hit points, bump the heal. That'd be dope. Just adding d6 to anybody's heal for 1 temporary point. But in the pinch, you see the BBEG, he's low, and the boss and the guys in the DM's like, fuck it, we're doing this. He tries to heal himself, and you're like, oh, good, you're healing yourself. 1 permanent point. We all get double the healing to your allies. BBEG doesn't get double his healing because it's only to allies. BBEG, so the BBG has 500 hit points. You get him down to 100, he heals 200 points. Guess what happens? He heals 200 points. Everyone that you can see in your party gets 400. Let's fucking go. That is what I want to see. I want to see any heal spell goes to the allies at double with a permanent one. That's how I would do. So let's see. So effect 4 should be scrapped. You mean scrapped as is, or just scrap? You just don't want a healing one at all?
No, he's saying that's what we're saying.
Oh, so effect 4 should be scrapped. No, not completely scrapped. It's just that I feel like, again, with this level, just doubling a single heal is like, it's just, again, it's not to the effect of what we've been told that these are meant to be for. Again, I'm imagining, whenever I approach all of my look backs on these guys, not only do I want to look at it from how I would use it in my realm, but I'm also trying to put it in the position of what you have presented us. So it's like either the battle with the BBEG or right before it, leading up to it. These guys are starting to learn, or they're in the battle with the BBEG and these things are popping up, right? And what they're learning about them. And I'm just trying to think of like the difference between a functional item in a normal campaign with normal battles, and what does this thing need to do to make this battle as epic as fucking possible.
So with what you're talking about, you can either, so say for instance I cast Cure Wounds on somebody. That's a D8 plus spell mod, right?
Right. So as this reads, that I would spend.
Temp, what would you do?
Okay, so let's read this. So say that one more time. You're going to use...
So I'm using Cure Wounds. It's a D8 plus spellcasting modifier. We'll say a D8 plus 5 for
Okay, so you're going to cast that. As written, you would expend a permanent charge. So what's that level spell?
First level.
So I would spend 1 full charge, because that's a first level spell, because that equal to half rounded up. So 1 charge, and I would double its effects on you.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but what you're talking
so what
about,
I'm saying is,
what would happen?
I could expend a temporary charge and add a D4 or a D6 depending on it. I would say D6 because it's divine. So,
okay.
or even a fucking D8 at this point. Like, you're this high a level, you're probably not going to be using a level 1 heal spell. But at level 18, fuck it, let's call it a D8. For every temporary point I spend, I add a D8
could
to...
you just say, add whatever die you would use? Like,
add a die. Perfect.
Yeah, just add a die?
For every there you go. Perfect. Thank you very much for saying that. So for every temporary point spent, you would just add a die rolled. So for that particular spell, one temporary point would give you what? How many rolls?
So one temporary point would give me one more D8. So right now I have a D8 plus my spell mod.
And now it's going to be 2d8.
2d8.
So I can give you 3 and give you 4d8, right?
Yes.
That would be temporary, which is great. That's all on you. That's only you or whoever you're healing. That's all I'm doing is just one way.
Just buffing it.
But the idea would be now I say it's late game. That's the only, like, we're all sitting there, we're scrambling, we're the players. We're like you're almost dead, I'm fucked. Like, and he's about to go all balls, it's about to be his turn. Bro, what do you have? Like, we need help. And you're just like, I got a level 1 heal spell. What do you fucking want from me? That's when I go, oh, you got what now? I do my permanent, and I tell you to do that spell next.
So now when I do my permanent, or when you do permanent, I got 1d8, so it's gonna, whatever I roll for that,
doubles.
It's gonna double.
And give it to every ally that I can see. I can see.
Would you say that it's too much to...
I would even say max. Just whatever you're casting, max that health, double it, max double, and then all to all allies.
For a permanent
because this is 18th level, so the idea is that's the smallest heal we could do. But then
wounds level is 3d8 plus your spellcasting.
At level 18, when you're over 200 hit points, 3d8 isn't shit.
That's 24.
But max double,
not including your.
But then max double to the whole party. That's 50 HP to the whole party. I'd much rather have that at late game, because again, and then if you have that one guy who's like, hey, guess what? I've been saving all of my like healing. Or dude, imagine someone who has a healing cantrip. Anytime they do a healing, I think there is a healing cantrip. Isn't like
there is a couple of homebrew healing cantrips.
I thought there was at least one healing cantrip.
But they try to mitigate it by saying each person can only get healed by this cantrip once a day. So they're not just spamming healing all day long.
But the idea that you could do this, and I like that he holds it on a healing spell. I would say the temporary points should work on spells. Mm-hmm. I would say the permanent one, I would almost just say any heal whatsoever.
So like if you take a potion?
I would say if you're doing the permanent one, the temporary can't bust a potion, right? It can't boost a potion. It can only boost magically. But I would say, because again, depending on how the BBEG heals, that solves that problem of the ever-healing BBEG. Now, you don't want to spend every single point doing this.
For sure.
But the idea is if you are up against that BBEG who is the ever-healing or has a way to boost themselves, the fact that you could bust this out and turn it on him, get double whatever he's getting, I think that would be worth it. I like the idea of a heal buff. I like the idea of siphoning it off of what's already happening. But like a lot of these, I think that it does deserve having a split between what temporary points can do and what permanent points can do.
And even though this is not a permanent effect like I would prefer, it is a much more significant and bigger effect at a potentially crucial moment.
And that's the idea, is doubling again, because again, I mean, that does, I would say that because
okay, how about this? How about instead of just who can see it, anybody else who has a scale or a scale weapon?
Oh, like just the party, just the
party, right?
I mean, and the only reason I would say like the allies is because if you're rolling with NPCs.
Yes, but it's like
I know, I totally get you.
Because the only thing I'm thinking of is like, okay, if they're within like a certain area, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then if it's going to be an area, then it's just an area. And so if somebody's too far away, that sucks. But if it's everybody that has an item, it doesn't matter where they are. I mean, if somebody's like fell down a ditch somewhere, they still get this. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying with that. That makes a little bit more sense. I think both are pretty valid. Yeah. I mean, again, it's all about gameplay. But I think both are valid. I like it. I think it works. I just think this one, again, it's all about that balancing, because I'm also thinking about this too, right? Yes, it has 7 abilities, and we keep talking about using temporary points, right? And there's 15, and there's a bunch of things you can do, but I think that that's part of the balancing, is when you give something so much to do, but it still costs, you have all of these options, but you got to know when and where to use them, and you got to know what order you use them in, right? If you've been blasting people, away with like item destruction right out the gate, or downcharging, downcasting a bunch, or right before the battle, you recharged everybody's weapon, like the revitalized healing may not be the best option because it's going to blow out too many of your temporary hit points to make it useful. And on top of that, it's a late game weapon. This is giving it so many different ways to be that versatile character. Because again, you have defensive, you have offensive. This is the buff character. You're supposed to be versatile. The fact that you could be anywhere and everywhere, but you can only do so many things, and you have to choose when to bust a permanent point. And again, every time these are permanent points, like permanently gone. So these are like once or twice you're gonna want to bust. And the idea is that the way we're designing them, I think again is better economy, because like, if you wanted to revitalize healing in this way and then do like what was the mass cure wounds? What level was that?
Level 5.
Level 5. So that's 3 because it's rounded down or rounded up. So it's half rounded up. So that's 3 permanent slots for that one spell.
See,
that would kill using a bunch of the other things. But again, I'm thinking you want to at least burn a permanent one for every one of these. That's from what Cosmic has said, and the way he's talked about how he wants to design the big battle and the big ending. I would want to dole these down into this way that we're talking about. The reason is not because I don't think it's not overpowerful enough, but it's because utilizing that action economy, I want the players to be very, very tempted to use every single permanent power. Right? I want them at some point to use the revitalized healing permanent power. I want them to have a reason to use the charge restoration permanent power.
Yeah.
I don't want them to end this game with 12 charges left. With 12 temporary. I want them to end this game with fucking 3. I want them to end this game going, I carry this around because these 3 I only can use for healing. I give 3 dice of healing with this, and that's all I use, and I refuse to give those up because you know how much it saves us when someone can just do a 1d4 and now I give them a 3d4. Mm-hmm. This is why, that's the story I want of, they know, this one. Yeah. This one stopped you from dying. This one right here, this one I permanently used. Yep, that one gave us that wish.
It would be sick if they had put a mark for each one on this freaking stack.
And that's what I'm saying is just imagine be like, hey, you like that item? I fucking burnt out this piece for you. You know what I'm saying? It's for you. I feel like this is. It sounds more OP than the rest, but again, it's like I don't know if you ever played the Star Trek Bridge Crew with us.
Oh yeah, I love that game.
I feel like this weapon is kind of like the captain's seat. Yes, you kind of are more in control. You're kind of more OP, but you are way more responsible. Like the shield, you're just responsible for protecting yourself or one other person. That's all. You ain't got anything else, right? Like the shield is basically just that. But with this, even with the robe was pretty.
It's there.
You know what you're doing with it. To protect. But this one, you were you're the status. You're the tactician. Yeah, you were going every stage of the way, going when and how do I use this? How is the battle progressing? Because especially if you do this idea of each one of these powers has sub-powers, right? So you have a permanent power and the temporary power that goes with it. All of that ability really makes this so versatile, but it also makes it hindered because you can't turn into the healer and then immediately want to turn into the power restorator, right? You kind of have to select your roles very fine-tunedly, but you can flex. You can heal someone and then also defend someone. So, I would say so far with these 4, I like them all. I wouldn't.
I like their potential for sure.
I love the potential. I really like the idea of adding one that could rearrange magical abilities somehow, even temporarily. Just rearrange. Ooh. Okay. How do you like this one, Cosmic? What if one of these abilities, temporary points could, for a short period of time, do this effect? So let's say for every temporary point, you get 1d6 turns. Right? So it could be
1d6 turns?
1d6 turns of this effect.
Okay.
Or bust a permanent slot, and it's permanent.
Interesting.
You can flip or reverse a magical effect. So let's say you guys got a badass weapon, and then you eventually get to an area like what we were talking about before, where the weapon's kind of fucking useless. Like we got an ice weapon, and we were fighting, like whatever, and now you're in the tundra, and you're fighting trolls and ice trolls and shit, and your ice weapon's junk. You could sell it, or I could bust out a permanent boost, or I can bust out one of my permanent ones and just go, now you have an ice sword. It's just inverted. So I can do it temporarily, right? I could just do some temporary points and like, hey, for the next 1d6 turns, you now have an ice sword instead of a fire, or vice versa. Yeah. But I can permanently switch it if I use my permanent point. That could be kind of dope. Because we're also talking about, like, imagine the robe. Now, because we haven't talked about how these will intertwine with each other, so now let's intertwine it with another item. So imagine you get the robe, right? And you get one of your slots as fire. And you're like, I don't need the fire. I could temporarily turn it ice, your resistance. Like, maybe, like literally, you could take any normal resistance or any normal element, and you could essentially turn it into what the DM would consider its opposite. I don't know, like, what lightning would be, but the idea would be
probably opposite thunder.
Yeah, like thunder or force damage or something like that.
See,
but you know what I'm saying? But like
radiant would probably opposite necrotic.
Yeah, radiant, necrotic.
See, poison and acid; those would probably opposite each other. Maybe.
One's physical. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can really think of.
It's more of the DM's discretion, but but again, situational. That would be kind of a cool one because we were talking about before about being able to, with the charge restoration, be able to like shift something from one, like shift a power from one item to the other. I like that concept, but I also like the concept of being able to like alter, an ability. That's kind of cool. And again, just using a permanent charge to like permanently shift, or again, even if it's not the opposite, I like maybe the temporary points are the opposite, and the permanent one is to any other element. Maybe you could just change it to any one of the 10 elements. So again, I could turn your fire sword into a necrotic sword permanently with the use of my permanent slot.
That could be cool. And then
you could change it with the story.
And then you can then use the temporary slot to have a new opposite. So whereas its opposite used to be fire and ice, now it's
necrotic and life.
Exactly.
Like necrotic and heal. Because then you could, and this would help once you've destroyed the BBEG and they go down and do the Tower of the Zodiac Tower. They could use these things to help change based off of what they're finding. So they could, again, change their weapons on the fly without having to find new ones. So that's another idea for this.
All right, so I have a really shitty idea. And I love it so much. So, have you ever seen the movie, what is it called? It's with Tim Allen. He's in space with the weird aliens. He thinks he's on a TV show, but it's real.
Oh, yeah, Space Quest.
Space Quest. Okay. I think that it would be cool for one of these things where, like, it doesn't matter how many charges this thing has on it. You slam this thing, it's like its last and final ability. You slam this thing into the ground, and it destroys itself. And at that cost, you basically get to, like, go back.
Oh, like a certain amount of time?
A certain amount of turns.
With your current knowledge. And if the DM's good enough...
You could properly reset everything.
Like, and everything...
That would be a DM...
That would be a DM nightmare for most DMs. But yeah, if the DM could know to redo the actions and everything, that would be kind of dope. So Cosmic did right here at the very end. So the staff was once the telepathic crystal found at the goddess's shrine. So the one that you had to bring all of the items to. This is when it shattered. This is the remains of it.
Which is what that first ability probably comes from.
So after the shrine's destruction, the crystal was shattered. The staff is the remnants of the shard held near each other, akin to like a magnetic force. So, however, it's not strong enough to completely reform, so the psychic magnetic-like force keeping the shards close together solidify into an unknown material. So, basically, all the shards came back, and now it's a staff of what was that shattered.
Okay.
Which is why I like that idea of the final thing is literally, like there should be a final, you shatter the staff. Like, it has nothing to do with the other charges, but like you said, the staff itself should have, like, a final,
Let's change what it does. Instead of going back in time... Maybe you remember that dragon at the end of the tower? maybe you summon that and it's on your side.
Oh, I was
for like a time.
I was gonna say like when you shatter it, either like maybe like it has to be super super OP, right? So like
this thing's got a
like maybe if you like destroy the staff, maybe you get like divine intervention. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's divine intervention. You basically get to ask for essentially any one thing, kind of like essentially a wish. You get to ask for any one thing.
For like one more thing with like the remnants that was stored left in the.
Yeah, or it's like a conversation depending on what type of DM you are. Maybe it's like time pauses and you get a chance to talk to the goddess. Like so, you're in the middle of a battle and you're like, I don't know what to do. So you're like, you now get to talk to the goddess and then she gives you guidance, aka the DM tells you how to win. So there's a lot of cool things that you could do with like the final stage of like I'm giving up everything. And again, it could be when it's empty or it could be when it's full, but the idea is that I'm forever giving up my staff for this one last ask. And because in his lore, when the goddess was still alive, if you touched the crystal, the weapons, you touch the weapons of the crystal, it would destroy that chain. But if you touch the crystal, you would temporarily be able to talk to the goddess. You'd be telepathically linked. So that's what I'm thinking is if you destroy it, you essentially get to talk to her, get a divine intervention,
that's
or you
get...
get...
That's a great idea for an ability. If one of the abilities, anybody who has one of these things, you guys are now telepathically linked.
I would say
because you can communicate. Like,
they should have they should totally have a telepathic link once you've been given all of these.
It's just like innately, like that would be kind of
cool. No, that would be pretty dope too. I'm trying to think. So right now he has a heal. He has the restoration, so he has like a weapon buff. He has the heal. He has a personal downcasting buff, which is great for a wizard. I still think that could also potentially be used like in tandem with someone else, like being able to use it. It gives someone else the ability to downcast. So he has he has been able to alter magic, buff weapons, heal, and destroy weapons. Right. So, what else do you need to? We don't really have anything that attacks. He can't really attack with it.
So the first one technically is the only one that does damage.
Yeah.
But again,
it is a buff. It's supposed to be just a buff.
A support weapon.
So we have the healing side for himself and his enemies, or himself and his allies. Downcasting is more personal. Item destruction is just kind of a great catch-all. I love that. The charge restoration I really do like too.
What about something with either illusions or something that affects the terrain?
Yeah, I was thinking about something else with healing, like temporary. Ooh, what about using temporary stuff to give temporary hit points? That could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So illusionary magic is really dope. I like this idea.
I like the idea of like either potentially like trying to like infect somebody's mind or something, so like they see things that aren't there.
So what about this? Is for every temporary point spent, you can boost any ally you can see. You can boost their AC by 1 for every one spent, and it's like an illusion. Essentially, you're kind of doing this to the enemy.
Oh,
where
like they're a little bit?
Yeah, you're basically blur. Like it's an illusionary spell, and for every one you do, you're essentially closer and closer to making 2 copies of them. And let's say once you max out at 5, there's 2 copies, and essentially for every 5 you spend on one person, anyone who attacks that person has disadvantage.
We have mechanics for like the legit spell. That adds like, or is that the? One of the spells like actually adds copies of yourself.
Yeah.
And they have to roll to see which one they.
And I'm trying not to siphon too much of what is already there. I'm trying not to be like this just does another thing that we already do. But I'm just thinking like for every one gets up to a +5 AC, but once you do 5, it's just straight disadvantage then. So up to +4 AC. Or you spend a 5th one, because the idea and yeah, you're right. We could have. I'm just saying, like lore wise, the idea is that you're slowly being like mirrored up until once you get 5. There's 2 versions of you, and you can do that for up to with 15 charges.
That makes sense because you think like somebody's moving or trying to dodge out of the way, and you just hit like the edge of them, and the edge of them is the illusion.
Exactly, that's the idea. Is like what the enemy sees is you're just doing this. You're slowly separating from your body. So when they're trying to hit you, which one's your head?
And
You
then
have
when
two
they get
heads.
Disadvantage, it's like you got a 50-50 chance.
That's my point. The reason for disadvantage is once you're up that point, there's two copies. And again, it's to make it simpler in this context instead of having to add in another reference. It's just saying up to 5. And this way, if you think about it,
you could get 3 people who have disadvantage if you haven't spent any permanent.
And that's the balance. It's not the entire party. And the entire party could have a boost to their AC. You could just sit there and bust 6 players. They could all have 3 AC, and you're still good, or 2 AC with 6 players.
Yeah.
Or you could take 3 of them, and they all get disadvantage. So think about it. If you have your tank. Like if you have your paladin, your barbarian, and your fighter, give them the disadvantage rolls, and then the rest of you are just sitting back here, and all you're doing is temporary points.
Shoot, the barbarian does his reckless attack, and then everybody attacks him normally instead of at advantage.
And then what would be the permanent one? Like, would you just be able to permanently boost someone's AC, or what would be the part? Because that's just temporary. So temporary, because I'm thinking about like you were saying, illusion. I like the idea of illusion, but also what does illusion do? It should boost AC or it should distract the enemy.
Yeah.
So going for the buff part, because I like the idea. We haven't done much debuffs yet, so we should talk about like a debuff on the party for illusionary.
So I would on the party.
On the enemy.
I was kind of thinking this would be the debuff. Like I was thinking about this affecting the enemy rather than the party members. So you went this direction, which works just as well.
I'm just trying to think of but how do you permanently like let's say you do a permanent usage, right? You do the big permanent one. What kind of AC bonus would that really like equate to, or what combat advantage?
This is lightweight in my mindset. Why when I was first thinking of illusion affecting the enemy, this is why. Is because when you're fighting an enemy, you're hopefully going to be fighting them till their end. Like, it might not.
Yeah.
But, what you do to them could, give them disadvantage on a turn, or like maybe a D4 turns, like using a temporary or something like that. But if you use a permanent on them, it's sticks like this psychic worm in their mind that basically makes them see things that aren't there, or maybe it's specifically when they see you, or when they see any one of the members holding these shields, like they just see them differently. And so you'd have to use a permanent one on somebody like the BBEG, and I'm debating on whether it would even make sense to use more than one on one person,
Yeah, because I like the idea of being able to boost the party's AC, and I like the concept of using the illusionary build for that. But yeah, a permanent boost, because again, if we're doing like illusion, I mean, what we could do is you could say, I don't know how OP this would be, but if you burn a permanent slot, one character of your choosing, essentially from the party or whoever else has a scale, but however you want to decide, it's essentially one character of your choosing will permanently have a shadow, a mirror image, like Cosmic said, follow them, and they permanently have that that advantage. So it does nothing. All it literally is a identical copy that just forever follows them. But when in combat, it grants them essentially any enemy that targets them has disadvantage unless they have true sight, or
right.
But basically give it to where any target has a 50-50 chance or disadvantage of targeting the wrong one.
I mean, that
could be kind of dope. That could be kind of dope.
That's very huge.
Because you're burning a whole permanent slot, and essentially you're just granting them like a permanent boost to their AC, which is like a permanent disadvantage.
I'm not gonna lie, for that, I would probably charge more than one permanent slot.
What if it's only physical?
What do you mean? Like,
so magical damage will always still hit the intended target. Because it's not about... Because magic understands, right? You see two individuals sitting next to each other, magic doesn't care that you're one off.
So, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage.
Anything that's like non-magically targeted. So if it physically requires a target. So if I'm physically firing an arrow at you, I have to choose which one I'm hitting. Still get disadvantage.
Right.
Magic is smart. We'll just say that. Yeah. If I'm hitting you with magic missile, my target...
Probably going after more your aura rather than your physical body.
I look at it like if I'm casting magic missile knows what my target is.
Yeah.
If I see two of you and I say I want to hit you, my intent is not which body.
It's... I want to hit you.
And again, that's only a balance. You could make the argument that this is divine and it shouldn't matter and it should be everything, but to balance it out, because it is kind of OP, because you could do that to the whole party, right? You could just spam 6 of your permanents and give everyone.
And that's another reason why I said I would charge them more.
Which is why I would say, but what if it was only physically targeted damage? So things like physically, I have to physically aim a bow at you or your person. I have to physically swing my sword. But if it's magically targeted or AoE.
Because, so magically targeted, I would say, would be saving throws and AoE. But if I am aiming a frost beam at you, I'm still physically aiming it at you. I'm still trying to hit you. I'm still rolling an attack roll.
Yeah. So that's my So I don't know that maybe that'd be attack roll. Maybe it's just you have disadvantage on all attack rolls against you. Attack roll. But the idea would be that it wouldn't be everything would have disadvantage to hit you.
Yeah,
but the idea would be
throws. There's lots of like AoEs and other ways around taking that damage.
What about this? Permanent slot, they gain the mirror image, but if the mirror image ever takes more than 10 damage, it goes away for 24 hours, or until the next day. So you have it as this permanent AC boost. People it's constantly negative, but once it takes 10 points of damage, poof, it's gone for the next day.
Well, at
so
that level, that's in one hit.
True. Okay.
So maybe like half their AC or something like that.
Yeah,
or the user's AC or something like that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. But I think there could be something to that. It's really hard. I love the idea of giving everybody bonuses to their AC for temporary points. But yeah, how do you boost someone's like? Oh, how about this then? Temporary points grants everybody a +1 to their AC up to, full disadvantage, if you want to still go with the idea of the mirror image. But if you don't, if you just want to say temporary HP grants people temporary AC for an hour, whatever you want to call it, what if a permanent one grants them a +1 to armor? So any armor can be elevated to a +1. So if it's a +1 shield, now it's a +2 shield. So that's a permanent. So all you do is you're only increasing the magical value by +1.
Now, is it for the armor or is it for the person? See, because I do like, so every person has a base AC of 10 plus their dex.
Yeah.
Right. So I like adding that plus to the person and
I like
not
that.
the armor. So it's like, hey, you can put on other armor, but it's going to it's only gonna like the +1 is gonna stick with you. So whatever armor you're wearing, you still get
I like that.
more AC.
Yeah. So you can do temporary hit points up to +4, and then if you give them 5, they just basically all incoming attacks are are half, and then you just, as DM, I don't know, maybe end of combat for that day, however you want to do it, because you could just do that. You could just say it's until the end of the day, so you could just do it at the beginning of the day, and that's all your charges. But
I like either per encounter, like for like a minute or something like that. Like, so if you want to do it like multiple times in a day, you're having to recharge them. It's like, hey,
because it's temporary. What if, like, let's say I give you, I use 3 points and I give you +4 AC, right? What if you have those +4 AC until they're essentially knocked down? So let's say your AC is 12. I give you +4, so now you have 16. Let's say they roll and it's an 11, they don't hit you. Let's say they roll and it's a 13. Well, it's 1 over your AC, so you lose 1 of your plus ACs. So you blocked it, they didn't hit you, but now instead of having 16, you have 15. And let's say next time they roll a 14. You didn't take it, but now they're 2 over your AC, so now you only have an extra +1. It's a little complicated.
Interesting.
But they're temporary AC, right? It's a temporary point for temporary AC, and then once it's gone, that's it. So you have plus AC, and as long as they don't hit over your natural AC, you'll continue to have that plus. But it's once they hit over it.
Got it. No, I see what you're saying.
So if you have normally 12 and I give you 4, now you're at plus 16. If they roll a 16, you don't get hit, but your bonuses are gone. Yeah. They've knocked out your +4 right off the gate. could still be beneficial because it's still blocking that one hit.
I would say if I'm putting in multiple points, I'd like to take multiple hits. So
every hit within the plus range will just knock it down by 1.
Yes.
So if you have a 16, if they roll a 16, you're still at 15.
And I would also say a hit doesn't take any away. Like if they actually hit you, if they beat
Correct.
your AC, it
Correct.
wouldn't take
No,
away.
it would. Because why would it? Why would it? It didn't work. No, 100%. It only goes away when they hit within the range it helps you, and that's only when it goes away. And it goes away every time you get hit.
Yeah.
1 by 1. I like that because then
I'm super down with that.
if you do, and then that way you don't have to do we can take away the illusionary concept and get rid of the +5 equals disadvantage. At that point, you give anybody any number of AC you want, 1 per temporary, and it will go away if that is hit. And you don't, because again, you don't get that staff point back until you re-roll that 1d6 the next day.
Yeah, but like okay.
Give your barbarian +10 to their just barbarian rage +10 AC. Go boy.
You're not gonna get hit. Like it's fine. Like just
Dude,
notice
this is fucking endgame bullshit.
Like, it's fine.
This is endgame bullshit. He wants this. If Cosmic wants this to get abused,
but see, that would be cool. He'd be invincible to a point because eventually it would whittle down and go away. You know?
Yeah, because even if the barbarian has a normal AC of let's say 18 and you give him 10 and he's 28, no one's gonna hit him. But all they have to do is roll 19. Mm-hmm. All they have to do is be rolling 19s, and they're just good. So it's going to, longevity-wise, it is going to make the battle really fucking epic. But at the same time,
it's cool.
Yeah, I like that. I would do that.
That's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I like that.
So temporary points, and then a permanent point grants a permanent boost. Because that would be the other thing too. Granting someone a permanent boost isn't nearly as effective as every day being able to give them +10 to their AC for as long as they can hold on to it. Mm-hmm. But a +1 permanently, yeah, maybe +1 isn't enough for maybe it has to be like a +2 permanent. Because if you can give them literally up to a +10, or you cap it to where you can only give one person +5. Maybe it can literally you can only give someone a +5
for the permanent points.
Temporary, yeah, the temporaries.
Oh, for the temporary.
So instead of giving the barbarian +10, maybe you can only give one other person, one ally, up to a +5.
That's what I was thinking initially, but
I mean, I kind of do like just bumping him up to an insane number.
That's the kind of like abuse, but like it's not so abusive that it stops the game from progressing.
No, it would
like,
really allow the BBEG to flex. It would kind of be like one of those moments where it's like if you have like the DBZ concept of progression where it's like you do that and the BBEG is like, oh, I guess it's time for my next form. Like we're really playing, like that would be dope. But again, it's as OP as that sounds for this late of game, you've burnt everything for the rest of the characters.
I mean, honestly, he could probably pull out some like craziness, like action economy.
Death word kill.
You know, that'll
Just
but,
boom!
But
fuck your AC, bitch!
At this point, the barbarian's probably got more than 100 hit points, so he's got to whittle them down at least a little bit first.
That's fair. But I'm just saying, like, there's...
Yeah.
No, but this level of concept. So yeah, being able to grant temporary HP... I don't know. I'm on the fence of... If it were, again, a normal item in a normal, like, gaming session, I would say cap it at in max +5 per character. But for the purposes that Cosmic wants it, I would say fuck yeah, just anyone gets temporary AC. As you have 15, give them a fucking 15 AC. Give them 15 plus to their AC, but every time over their normal AC they get it gets knocked down by 1. It just goes like that. That would be fucking awesome for an epic end battle. Oh man. Okay. And I like that too because again, it allows you to spread the love throughout the whole party or hyper focus. Yeah. Just like all of these that we've talked about where again, it's like using temporaries to allow to have one person buff a heal spell, just one heal spell, or buff it for the whole party. It's not as big of a buff, but it's a hell of a buff that the party itself needs, right? Yeah. So I like this idea. Okay, so that would be the way to do it easy. So let's What are some debuffs that you would want to like inflict that you think that would be appropriate to temporarily inflict but also permanently inflict? Because again, you have to think like it either has to be a wow moment for a one-time permanent use,
Yeah.
or it has to be a permanent effect, like we've been talking about. So you don't really want to inflict a permanent effect on an enemy, unless it is the BBEG.
So
I'm thinking it's more got to be a wow effect, right?
The permanent effects that I was thinking of that I think could be good is something akin to the banishment spell. So the banishment spell, the way it works is, boom, you're gone back to your home plane.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? And you stay there for as long as I maintain concentration. But if I maintain concentration for the whole minute, then you don't come back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, that means they have to make whatever they gotta do to get their way back here, find the portal, do some ritual, whatever the case may be. So, in this situation, now granted the BBEG, we know he's not from here.
Which would be great for the storyline to try to banish him. Which is immediately I was like, man, that should almost be like, what if that was the ultimate skill of this weapon? You sacrifice, again, regardless of how many charges are in it, you sacrifice the staff itself. And it can permanently banish any one creature to its home plane permanently. What if that's the mindfuck of the whole thing? Is that's supposed to...
So if they know that going in, what's stopping them from running in and by BBEG?
One target and the wielder.
Make it with you?
Make it a sacrificial... it's the ultimate weapon. It's the ultimate weapon for the party is you don't have to do this. You can banish him or defeat him. But give the party that option of...
So if they fight him throughout the whole fight
and it's not going to happen, this guy... And here's the cool part, because if they know anything about the late game, right after the BBEG happens is the Zodiac Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Any player still surviving, any player living after the Zodiac Tower ascends to godhood. What if they know that, or if they don't, that character that does this sacrifice is sacrificing a whole lot more than just going, because they know their chance that if the players are playing properly and he's open about it, they know that they have godhood on the horizon. Now, so you not only
after they beat the tower, do they all have to be there, or say the person survives?
I think it's anybody who survives the tower, anybody still, because again but that's the idea is if you could do that to where it's you could banish any one creature permanently to its home plane, but it takes the wielder with it. That would be a fucking mind
even
fuck.
If it doesn't take you with it, I kind of like the idea of, you sacrifice it, so, when you throw this into the ground, it doesn't just destroy the staff, but it destroys the wielder with it, and you're legit, you both sit there and crumble to ashes, all of this, end game power just flows into
it banishes one target permanently to its home plane, but at the cost of all of your levels. So you can banish the BBEG, but you become a level 1, and you can't. So that way you wouldn't be able to participate in you'd literally die if you went into the Zodiac Tower.
Gosh, that would suck.
But yeah, no. So I'm liking that option. I like the banishment option. I'm trying to think of what are the debuffs that you normally put.
There's Bane is one of the biggest ones where any attack roll that they have gets a -D4 to it. Any saving throw that they do gets a -D4 to it, and that usually lasts for about a minute. That's the biggest one that I know of. There's a lot of curse debuffs that you can put on people that gives them disadvantage on specific checks or specific saving throws. So if you're a wizard and you're going to be using a lot of wisdom saving throw things, then you give them disadvantage on wisdom saving throws. There's a lot of debuffs.
So we were talking about illusionary spells. So what if for every temporary point you spend, you can make, for every one temporary point spent, you can make a 1x1, a 1 block radius around a single target, difficult terrain.
I do like that because I was thinking about
because you'd have to add it up, right? Mm-hmm. So it's so for 1 point spent, it's the block they're currently standing on, which kind of sort of doesn't do a whole lot. But then for another point, it's the next block out, and then another point, it's the next block out, and it's that per target. So you can do it on one target and affect everyone around them, or you can affect multiple targets because it's the idea of once they move, they're in difficult terrain.
Well,
so the idea is for every 3 points, you're essentially cutting their movement in half.
I honestly would do it more than just difficult terrain. I'd do it kind of
like thorns, like doing damage.
What's that one? Thorn, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thorns come out the ground, and like it not only is it difficult terrain, but every time they move across it, they take damage.
That might be a little bit much for temporary points. So far, this hasn't done anything like that.
But
Like
that is a second level spell.
Oh, that's true.
That's a second level spell that does that in a huge area. And if I'm using temporary points to do it in a fairly small
and that is, and then I am talking like 1 point for the first square, 2 points for the next square. So that would be right, because 1 point for the square they're on, which means they start their turn in it, they would take damage. So 1 point would be useful. 2 points would mean they can't move without taking damage. 3 points would make their area much bigger.
If the biggest advantage with this, or the biggest reason why it's a second level spell, because the second they move out of it, it's useless.
But if they start their turn in it, they take damage. So that's where the one hits. But you could essentially, like, let's say someone's strategic, like there's an enemy in a strategic spot. Just spending 1 point to put the spikes in their square, maybe just forces them to move. Even if just that one square out gets them out of cover, gets them out of advantage, gets them in an unfavorable situation.
And that's true.
So, and that's just on 1 point.
Is that worth 1 point?
One temporary point? Hell yeah. One temporary point to force someone out of cover,
Think
like
about
literally.
What the other temporary points have been doing so far. I feel like they.
But again, this is stacking. So let's say you have like the start of the battle.
Now,
you
when
can spend.
Say it goes out another square. Is that like a radius?
Yes, radius.
Okay.
The full. So that's what I'm saying is like, so for 1 point, it's pretty nice to be able to force a character to move, or just for 1 point, he's permanently going to take damage if he doesn't move. 1 point, it's just there, like for the day, right? It's just like a full day or an hour, whatever. Mm-hmm. But the idea is then you spend 2 points, and then it's him and anyone near him plus his movement. 3 points, now he has to move 3 squares. That's now half his movement. He's basically, that's all his movement, because the average one will have 3, or for 6 squares of movement.
Yeah.
So with 3 points, you go, first square, second square, third square, and if it's half their movement speed, they can't get out of it.
But
so,
again,
and then the bigger you go, the bigger it's all of the enemies. You spend 10, and it's all of the enemies that are.
Any points, I'm just going to cast that spell. It's going to be a 20-foot radius, which is 40 feet wide, and I'm going to center it on 4 people for a second level spell.
True, but that's all you get, whereas I can do 1 on you, 1 on him, 1 on him, 1 on him, 3 on that guy, and hit 4 people. That's the difference. Is you could in one area. The idea of the temporary points is because you can make it appear anywhere. You could basically draw it out if you wanted. Because you're only doing 1 square at a time, you could literally draw it in so you could put this almost anywhere and on any level of terrain.
Just double the range. So 1 point, we give you the square you're standing on and the one directly around it, and then add another, you get 2 more layers. Just to increase like how much you get for what you're putting into it, because if you're standing in there and I give you 1 point, yes, you have to move. But
you don't have to, but you're going to take damage at the start of every turn, which is...
if you do move, you take that first amount of damage. Like, what are we talking about when we talk about damage? Like, for spike growth, it's 2d4. So, a maximum of 8, a minimum of 2.
I would at least 2d6, 2d8, because we're talking about divine level now. So it's not just spike growth. This is like... My mind is... It's either illusion or you are physically warping the floor itself and causing them damage. So I would say that the damage would be doable, but I think that the versatility outweighs the need to make it uber powerful, because again, being able to pinpoint exactly where you want it, it's not just I'm just going to cover the land with hard to reach space. Like you can make a very specific, because again, like I can make a hallway or a ledgeway that would have to be jumped. I can specifically like put these in very strategic spots and no one would see them too. Because again, also thinking out of game concepts of like, or out of combat, being able to do as many as you wanted in single spots, I think is why it outweighs being able to do a second level that just covers one blanket.
If I think about it as a player and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, say if somebody did this to me, what would I do? Especially at level 18, I'm just gonna jump through it. I'll take the freaking damage, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's no big deal. And so, if all I'm doing with these points is becoming a minor inconvenience to these people, like, it doesn't feel like I'm doing a whole lot.
No, but again, this is only one of the multiple powers, and it isn't an attack weapon. So I'm trying to...
Yes.
I'm also looking at it from the point of view of it is a buff debuff. This is one of those ones where it's supposed to give you an advantage, but not everything has to be the game-changing advantage, right? Because this is one of those ones where I'm looking at where it's more on that like tactical, strategic side of how can I use this. Now, granted, we also could be thinking about this completely wrong. What if instead of like difficult terrain, and it's a debuff, what if for every point you can make it almost like quicksand, to where for 1 point it's 1 square, and the same concept of development, but what if the character can't move? So once you're in this,
that
you can't move.
I like every turn you stay there, you sink deeper, and it's harder for you to get out.
Oh, so for every turn you're in there, it takes 1 more movement to get out.
Yes.
So
and eventually you'll have no movement left.
Yeah, you'll basically be stuck at waist height.
And you're still taking damage. Like I feel like there should be a way for you to...
Well, I don't know if you'd be taking damage, but once you're waist height, you're essentially could be considered prone. So you could basically take every attack against you,
but every attack against you have disadvantage.
But everybody could just walk up to you, and you're literally or what we could say is once you're so deep in, every round you don't move takes 1 more movement to get out of the same square. So first round, 1 movement, you're out. Second round, 2 movements to get out of the same square. 3 rounds, 3 movements to get out of the same square. But what if also every round you're in it, you lose 1 AC because you can't dodge as best? So you're literally losing AC until you're stuck, which is then full disadvantage. Because at that point, every time you can't dodge when you're sinking in the ground, right? You can't dodge when you can't move your feet, right? Your dodging is all about the feet, the hips. So every time you're stuck, if you don't move out of that seat, you're also going to lose AC. Because I don't know about taking damage in this case, but I like the idea of you can't move and you're losing AC.
I think that you should... So there are certain conditions. I think that it should give you the incapacitated condition at a certain point because you literally are incapacitated. Let me see exactly.
But you're not really stunned though. I mean, you still have like I'm assuming like you still have upper waist. You're not like again. You can't really defend yourself very well, which is why you get the disadvantage. But you'd still be able to like attack. You still should be able to swing like a sword.
At every point, it would never get to the point where you're like if you stay there. What I'm thinking is like. So you start going down at the beginning. Yeah, you'd be like under the grapple condition where you can still attack.
I would only go like let's say my envisionment is only waist height because part of it is I wouldn't want this to just be like oh they're at waist height we can just leave he'll just eventually die because eventually go into the ground and suffocate. I would just say up to waist height to where if after 4 or 5 rounds they don't move, they never will move again. That's just where they are. But you still have to defeat them, right? It's still the BBG. He can still cast magic. He's just not going to go anywhere. Very limited, and is he's always going to have disadvantage on all attacks. And maybe prone isn't correct because I don't think ranged should have. He's basically just short. He's just a shorter target that can't move.
The theory is like they're a smaller target for you, and so it's harder to hit. But and if they have their full mobility. Then
that's the idea, but they wouldn't have. So I do like this idea though of not making them move instead of making difficult terrain. I actually like the idea of not making them be able to move. Better.
So would bumping more points into it still increase its radius?
Why not? Because then you could bump. You can either target one player, and again you can follow him with 1 point at a time, or you could just blast it all at once, do a 10 square radius and get all of the enemies and make them because then they're focused on getting out of the thing while you're just pop shotting them. You know what I mean? Because difficult terrain, because you were right, you could
for sure down for that.
I could force my way out of difficult terrain, but I think in some difficult terrains or in some of those spiked growths, I don't even think you take damage every round. Some of them you don't.
Most of the ones you don't. The only one you take damage is spike growth.
Vortex's camera went into sleep mode or something. Oh, weird.
I didn't even notice that.
Thanks for pointing that out. The tablet. I think the tablet went to sleep.
Oh, because normally it's plugged in. That's why it doesn't.
Oh, did it die? Oh, yep. Tablet died on us, y'all.
Oh, sadness.
I mean, it's already 10 o'clock. We've been hashing this out for a while. I think we've given him plenty. I think we should probably call it there. I think the camera has it. We normally have it plugged in, but I was charging my phone instead of my tablet today. So, you know what, though? That's... we hit the 3 hour mark, and it's finally the phone or the tablet said, "Hey,
It's like this time.
we're done."
It's time.
So thanks for pointing that out, but I think we are gonna call it there. I appreciate you for joining us. I hope we gave you.
Yeah, I hope you got some good stuff. I hope you enjoyed our perspective. I know we had quite a bit of verbal ping pong there, but it was good.
Hey, you know what? It's great though because it's not.
Work it out.
We don't. It's not like we're arguing at who's right and who's wrong. It's just more of the logic of what would we want to work with. Like,
exactly.
You're not wrong with the way that you want to do it. It's just it's not the way that my physics and my mechanics would prefer it to work. But it doesn't say that I wouldn't play that game just because it works the way you described it. It's just more of a how would I approach it under my rules. And that's the whole point of this, thinking beyond the book and going, how does it make sense for you? And you don't have to create your own homebrew just to think beyond the book. You just have to think, how does it make sense to you? How does it work best? And that's what we're here for. Our debates aren't here for us. We're not debating each other on who's right and who's wrong. Well, we're going to continue to play games with each other all we want.
Yeah.
Our debates are for you guys to realize that there isn't a right way to do it. It's just different. And if you agree with Kage, then go with Kage. I'm never, it's not going to change anything. But if you agree with me, then use mine. It doesn't change anything. Neither of us are right. It's just how we and our players want to play.
It's about what you enjoy. Truly, truly.
Don't forget to tell Kage about the Shield of Inversion when you get a chance. That's right, because you weren't here for Shield of Inversion, so we got to talk about that other item. Basically, it was it's a pretty cool concept of his that we'll have to talk about. I don't know if we'll do that on screen or next week. Okay. If we'll do that next week on screen, or if I'll talk to you about it off screen. Okay. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Cosmic, for submitting your ideas. We will always do this. I think I'm going to continue doing this on Mondays. I might do my own on Thursdays, but I'm kind of liking doing this with Kage here. It's just nice to have both sides, and I don't have to keep constantly refreshing him on the items I've reviewed.
It's so cool. I really like seeing it. I really do.
But yeah, I'm kind of liking this. I'm thinking Mondays might just be like homebrew review stuff and maybe some like mechanic talk and then like mechanics discussions. And then Thursdays, I'm still kind of keeping it just with the perspective. Yeah, the Discord thing and then perspective. I'm going to finish up the Discord this Thursday. Next Thursday, I'm going into the the DM questions side. And then I don't know what I'm doing after that on Thursdays. So I have 2 more weeks to come up with a new topic.
You got this.
On screen would be funnier with his reactions to it. It's to its abilities. Yeah, I'll do that then. Next Monday when he's in, we'll go ahead and run over that. Or actually, is it next Monday? You're here next Monday. You're not here on the 21st. Okay, so next Monday on the 14th, we will run over the Shield of Inversion again. I think he will like that. And if you guys want, come and join me on Thursday where I will be going over the Discord again. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great evening, a wonderful rest of your week, and we will catch you later on Thursday.